Chapter 924. After killing Kai Ba's group, the dimensional universe became much quieter. If there were 10,000 people commenting before, there weren't even 100 people now. This was like an online game. Usually, everyone could be dissatisfied with each other on the internet, but once someone could easily find a real-life player and PK you, the online game would immediately become much quieter. Many people would even quit the game. If their personal safety couldn't be guaranteed, what was the point of playing the game? Unfortunately, this wasn't an online game. No one could quit, so it was best to keep quiet. Even if you could be arrogant with others, please keep quiet in front of Lin Jun. This was because he could find you at any time and kill you without any suspense. Facing the incomparably rampant, endless races on the ground, this was the first time they were afraid. The experts on the other side had an agreement that they weren't allowed to come back and attack the people in the planetary cemetery. Thus, Lin Jun's safety was almost guaranteed. In the entire planetary cemetery, the only one who could truly pose a threat to Lin Jun was the Azura King. However, the Azura King still had to oversee Songhai Planet, so Lin Jun was almost invincible. For the first time, the warriors of the ground races in the planetary cemetery felt like they had found someone to rely on. Ignoring the thunderous cheers of the ground race warriors in the dimensional universe, Lin Jun was now checking his points. 380,000 points. There's still more than 600,000 points to become a 5-star warrior. 1 million points to become a 5-star warrior. 10 million points to become a 6-star warrior. And 100 million points to become a 7-star warrior. During this time, I'll try to become a 6-star warrior first. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Ever since Lin Jun killed Kai Ba's group, the situation in the planetary cemetery gradually changed. Lin Jun became a hunter hidden in the darkness and began to appear and disappear unpredictably to kill the warriors of the endless races. Lin Jun was really too difficult to deal with. He had the ability to tear space, and he also had the ability to kill people from hundreds of millions of kilometers away. The endless races had to be on guard against Lin Jun's sudden appearance at all times. What was worse was that sometimes people would inexplicably get their heads blown off, dying quite miserably. Moreover, Lin Jun was like a tireless machine, and there was almost no time for him to rest. A small group of Ghost Clan warriors left Songhai Planet and prepared to head east to hunt down the people of the surface races. As they walked, a figure flashed in front of them. It was Lin Jun. Both the main body and the doppelganger joined the battle, and the long spear and the dual swords worked together, slaughtering the enemy like they were chopping vegetables. The team led by the Godstone elite warrior was completely wiped out. On a distant planet, a group of demon race martial artists were having a meal. Halfway through their meal, disaster fell from the sky. Waves of invisible mental attacks bombarded them. It was another massacre without any suspense. They didn't even have the chance to escape. Corpses were strewn all over the ground. This kind of situation didn't happen once in a while, but often. In the beginning, the people of the endless races were not convinced. Many demigods led teams to search for Lin Jun. However, Lin Jun did not bother with the demigod teams at first. Instead, he targeted the weaker ones. The Divine Stone martial artists were basically defenseless against him. He could kill as many as he wanted, and as many as he could. After 3 long months of slaughter, the countless races were left trembling in fear. In these 3 months, Lin Jun could kill more than 100 people every day on average, obtaining more than 100,000 points. On the craziest day, Lin Jun even had a record of killing more than 600 people, including 9 Godstones. In 3 months, Lin Jun had killed more than 20,000 people of the endless races. In the end, Lin Jun even found that it was not so easy to find a team of the endless races. The people of the endless races were terrified. At this rate, before the eye of the storm ended, the people of the planet's graveyard would be killed by Lin Jun. The Azura King flew into a rage every day. He even personally led a group of demigods to search for Lin Jun, but to no avail. Songhai Planet's Golden Hall was the Azura King's lair. There were dozens of demigod experts gathered below, but each of them had a look of annoyance on their faces. They hadn't been able to capture Lin Jun for a long time, and the countless races had never had a day of peace. Now, the martial artists of the surface races were active again because of Lin Jun. Who could tell this king how to deal with this damned Lin Jun? The Azura king could no longer suppress his anger. My lord, Lin Jun's whereabouts are strange and unpredictable. He also has a powerful escape method and a very sensitive sense of smell. It's harder than ascending to the heavens to catch him in a place like the planet's graveyard. Hong Meng stood out and said, then according to what you said, we should just watch Lin Jun continue to be arrogant here? Is everyone of the endless races going to stay on Songhai planet? With so many people staying here, there won't be enough god stones to go around. My lord, that's not what I meant. I think we should think of a good idea. The Azura king suppressed his anger. If you have any ideas, just say it. I don't want to listen to nonsense. Hong Meng stepped forward. There really is a way. I wonder if my lord has heard of the tripartite soul-locking formation? The Azura king was stunned. I think I have, but I don't know much about it. This method is very simple. It requires 3 different races that have reached the level of emperor to perform it at the same time. 3 different types of qi will gather and lock onto a person's position. Then, they will use star power to lock onto his space and make him unable to escape. Hong Meng laughed. Back then, the tripartite soul-locking formation had once slaughtered the Hall of Fame of the surface races. Oh, it's that powerful? The Azura king's eyes lit up. He was overjoyed, but soon he frowned. That's not right. It requires 3 emperors. But right now, I'm the only one here. Those from the Stagger continent won't come back easily. How can I do it alone? Hong Meng said confidently, my lord, those from the Stagger continent indeed don't want to come back. But I think the great elder of the ghost race, Red Lotus Emperor, can come back. Red Lotus Emperor? That person is hard to talk to. Will he come back? He will. Red Lotus Emperor is a saint-level alchemist. As long as you promise him that you will hand Lin Jun over to him after capturing Lin Jun, I think Red Lotus Emperor will agree. Because Lin Jun is an alchemist too? That's right. Lin Jun and Red Lotus Emperor are both saint-level pinnacle alchemists. As far as I know, Red Lotus Emperor has always wanted to go one step further and reach the peak of alchemy. He even said that if he could learn the alchemy skills of the surface races to the limit, then he might be able to realize his dream. Now that he has captured Lin Jun, do you think he'll refuse? The Azura king nodded. That's right. You're right. Red Lotus Emperor won't be able to resist such temptation. I'll contact him. But then the Azura king said, you're talking about the emperors of the 3 races. The demon race has me. The ghost race has Red Lotus Emperor, but we're still missing an emperor. Who should we look for? I don't think the others have a reason to kill Lin Jun. Hong Meng got closer to the Azura king and said in a low voice, my lord, those who want to achieve great things don't care about small things. Right now, Lin Jun is our biggest problem, and the others can't help. Why don't you contact the heartless emperor of the human race? What? You wanted to contact the human race? Are you crazy? Azura king looked at Hong Meng in shock, as if he was looking at a madman. My lord, this isn't much. It's just a temporary cooperation. Everyone will understand. Besides, other than Heartless Emperor, can you find any other emperors of the other races willing to do this? Hearing Hong Meng's words, the Azura king finally made up his mind. All right, we'll do as you say. Right now, the Eye of the Storm is led by Lord Bloodshadow. Although he's been missing for a while, he'll definitely pay attention to the situation here. Lin Jun must be dealt with. Let's find Red Lotus Emperor and Heartless Emperor. After making up his mind, the Azura king immediately got to work. He called out to Red Lotus Emperor in the Endless Race channel. After the two contacted each other, they hit it off immediately. When Red Lotus Emperor heard that he was going to deal with Lin Jun, he laughed to the Azura king. Brother, you've really given me a timely reign. This Lin Jun has long been an eyesore to me. However, due to the agreement between the 2 races of the crisscross continent, I couldn't do anything. But since you promised, I'll make a trip. The Azura king cursed in his heart. Without the temptation of saint-level alchemist knowledge, would you be so obedient? However, he couldn't say that out loud. The Azura King and Red Lotus Emperor made an agreement and immediately contacted Heartless Emperor. The loudspeaker could be used to broadcast across the entire screen. It could also be used to call Heartless Emperor. Heartless Emperor's dimensional universe would also receive the message. Heartless Emperor, who was searching for treasures on the crisscross continent, immediately frowned when he received the call from the Azura King. The Azura King was considered an expert, but Heartless Emperor didn't think much of him. He immediately answered the call. Heartless King, the reason I'm here is very simple. I'm here for Lin Jun. If you also want to get rid of Lin Jun, I think we could talk about working together. I wonder if you have such intentions? What kind of cooperation? Hearing Heartless Emperor's question, the Azura King was overjoyed. This matter was basically done. After relaying Hong Meng's words, the Azura King patiently waited for Heartless Emperor's reply. He originally thought that Heartless Emperor would consider for a while, but he didn't expect Heartless Emperor to give an answer immediately. Deal. I'll go to Blue Sea Star now. Even the Azura King was stunned by the straightforwardness. Aren't you going to think about it carefully? Aren't you worried that the other races on the surface will gossip? The Heartless Emperor sneered. I'm already heartless. Why would I care about those things? No need to say any more. I'll be there soon. After speaking, the Heartless Emperor disconnected the call from the dimensional universe. He directly tore through space and headed straight for Blue Sea Star. The Heartless Emperor was notified later. In the end, he arrived 1 minute earlier than the Red Lotus Emperor. This showed the difference in strength between the two. The ease of passing through space was also different. Chapter 925. Starlight flashed on his chest. Lin Jun lowered his head and looked at his chest. The sixth star had already lit up. Lin Jun let out a long sigh. He had been killing nonstop for the past few months, and his points had soared. He had finally reached 10 million and successfully advanced to 6 stars. In the eye of the storm, there were not many powerhouses above 6 stars. Those who could reach 7 stars were already crowned kings. Lin Jun's goal in the eye of the storm was to be crowned king. There were 3 conditions to be crowned king. First, one had to be famous enough. Lin Jun already had that. Second, one had to become a 7-star warrior. Lin Jun was currently a 6-star warrior. Third, one had to kill other crowned kings to gain the recognition of the people and become a crowned king. It was still difficult for Lin Jun to kill other crowned kings. What he could do now was to continue killing and strive to become a 7-star warrior. However, there was a difference of 90 million points between 6 stars and 7 stars. Lin Jun had to work hard. 100 points for a Divine Will Realm Cultivator is already a drop in the bucket for me. If I want to get more points, I have to kill more Celestial Realm Cultivators, Divine Stone Realm Cultivators, and even demigods. 100,000 points for a demigod. Although killing a demigod is still a little difficult for me. If I'm careful, I'm still quite confident that I can defeat a demigod. Lin Jun made up his mind and began to search for demigod teams nearby. He was now close to the Songhai Star area. It was difficult to find teams of endless races in other places. There were only endless races around Songhai Star. If you wanted to kill a demigod, Lin Jun's Divine Might Destiny could not be used. Demigod's spiritual power had basically reached the sky blue color. The Divine Might Destiny could no longer cause much damage. He had to use his physical body to fight. It's best if there's a demigod leading the team with 2 Divine Stone Realm Cultivators and a group of Celestial Realm Cultivators. This is the best team for me. If there's more, I won't be able to handle it. It wasn't easy to make this decision. Lin Jun prepared well and adjusted himself to his best condition. Apart from the Black Hole Devourer, his strongest trump card was the 3 destructive Divine Thunders. As for the Stellar Explosion, he had yet to fully refine it, and he had yet to learn the myriad swordsmanship's Rakshasa. However, Lin Jun reckoned that he wouldn't need these 2 moves. Lin Jun hadn't had many opportunities to use the 6th stage of the Shadowless Steps. Most importantly, most people didn't need him to use this move. Time deceleration was still 7 times slower. He had been fighting frequently for the past 3 months, so he didn't have time to cultivate. During this period of time, he had collected some God Stones. He now had more than 10,000 God Stones. However, he couldn't exchange any more God Stones. The god stones on the exchange panel had all been exchanged. It was said that the gods would place more treasures on it, but no one knew exactly what they would place. After finishing his preparations, Lin Jun set out. Lin Jun's mental power extended into the void as he slowly moved forward along the lines of the planets near Neptune. He tried to stay as close to the ground as possible so that he would not be discovered. This team won't do. There are too few of them, and they don't have enough points. It's not worth my time. This won't do either. I can't take down 2 demigods unless I use my trump card. This guy, it's Ho Meng. Lin Jun's mental power traveled thousands of miles in an instant, and he quickly found a few teams. However, he didn't expect to see Ho Meng. Ho Meng, the monkey, held a golden staff in his hand. He was leading 2 Godstone Realm cultivators and a dozen God's Realm cultivators in the other direction of Neptune. His tail had grown out, and his monkey eyes were darting around as if he was on high alert. Lin Jun closed his eyes slightly. He felt that this was a coincidence. He was looking for a suitable team, and he didn't expect to meet Ho Meng. Could it be that he was up to something? Lin Jun's mental power searched the 10 million kilometers around Ho Meng, but he didn't find anything. Lin Jun was still very confident. With the Luo Tian escape technique, Lin Jun's escaping ability was top-notch. Even an emperor wouldn't be able to stop him. I don't care so much. This monkey is annoying. I'll take this opportunity to get rid of him. After making up his mind, Lin Jun immediately tore through space and appeared less than 100,000 kilometers away from Ho Meng. Let's get rid of those 2 Godstone Realm cultivators first, lest they get in the way. Lin Jun immediately shot out a God's Might, and one of the Godstone Realm cultivators died on the spot. Most Godstone Realm cultivators couldn't reach Sky Green's mental power, so they couldn't resist Lin Jun at all. Ho Meng roared as one of the Godstone Realm cultivators died tragically. Attention, everyone! Lin Jun is here. Run for your lives. The group of people immediately scattered and ran in all directions. Lin Jun didn't chase after the Godstone Realm cultivators. Each of them was worth 1,000 points, so it didn't matter if he didn't take them. He shot out another God's Might and killed another Godstone Realm cultivator. Then, he appeared and blocked Ho Meng's path. He was very confident that he could take down Ho Meng in a one-on-one situation. Damn monkey, accept your fate. This time, you won't be able to live just by leaving your tail behind. Ho Meng rolled his eyes. Lin Jun, do you really think I'm afraid of you? Last time, I was in a hurry to leave, so you took the opportunity to break my tail. This time, you won't be so lucky. Cut the crap. Leave your life. Lin Jun raised his hand and waved his violet gold spear. Ho Meng also did not show any weakness as he waved his iron staff to meet the attack. The 2 of them fought together. Ho Meng's strength was indeed above the demigod white that Lin Jun had killed before. The 2 of them attacked each other crazily, but Lin Jun couldn't take him down in a short time. Ho Meng was going all out. The iron staff's lethality was also very strong. He attacked Lin Jun with all his might, as if he wanted to die together with him. Lin Jun couldn't help but frown. Ho Meng's actions were a little strange. Lin Jun wanted to end the battle quickly, so he didn't want to waste any more time. Armor transformation. Lotus Bloom. Lin Jun raised his defense and pounced. Damn monkey, aren't you good at fighting? This time, let's fight to our heart's content. Seeing Lin Jun's star force exploding towards him, Ho Meng actually retreated. Ha ha ha! Lin Jun, this day next year will be your anniversary. Wait for your death. Rumble. The surrounding space was suddenly locked in place, and a powerful anti-air effect was created. The sky suddenly darkened, and the area within a few hundred miles seemed to be covered by a layer of dark red light. Hooray! Lin Jun was alarmed. At this moment, he knew that he had been tricked. No wonder something so coincidental happened. Ho Meng actually brought a team that was just enough for him to take down. This was obviously a bait. Lin Jun was already on his guard, but he was still too confident in his methods. He thought that even if he was ambushed, he could still escape easily. He didn't expect the other party to make such a big move. Seeing 3 figures appear in the void, Lin Jun knew that he was in danger. One was a red-haired demon warrior. He was the king of Songhai Planet, the king of Planet Graveyard, Shura King. The other one was a white-haired, white-robed man. Even his eyebrows were white. He looked like ice. He was Lin Zhan's old enemy, Heartless King. There was also a black-robed man with a terrifyingly sinister expression. He was a ghost race demigod, and from his aura, he was undoubtedly a king. What was even scarier than the three emperors was that the surrounding space was completely locked. Luo Tian's escape technique couldn't be used. When the three emperors appeared, Homeng laughed. "My three lords, I've completed my mission. I'll take my leave now." King Azura and King Crimson Lotus nodded. Then, Homeng turned and ran in a certain direction. He wanted to leave this forbidden zone. But before he could take a few steps, a white light flashed across the sky. Clang! Pooh! His body was still running forward, but his head had already fallen to the ground. Homeng died just like that. Shura King was furious. "Heartless King, what is the meaning of this? How dare you sneak attack someone from the endless race? Do you still think of us as partners?" Red Lotus Emperor was also furious. He wanted an explanation from Heartless King. Heartless King just said coldly, "Idiot, I'm working with you. The fewer people who know, the less trouble there is. Don't you understand this?" Shura King and Red Lotus Emperor were stunned. Although they were unwilling, they had to admit that Heartless King was right. The two of them were working with Heartless King. This wasn't something that could be announced to the endless race. It could only be considered a secret agreement. The Heartless King gently wiped the ice sword in his hand. "Now that we've gotten rid of Lin Zhan, this matter will be resolved without anyone knowing. We can then part ways with peace of mind." Heartless King glanced at Lin Zhan. Heartless King's expression didn't change, but his tone was very proud. "Lin Zhan, when you provoked me, did you think this day would come?" Facing the three emperors, Lin Zhan did not show any signs of panic. Holding his purple gold spear, Lin Zhan sneered, "What a big lineup. 3 emperors came together, but I'm afraid I've suffered a double loss." At this moment, the black-clothed Crimson Lotus Monarch said sinisterly, "Lin Zhan, don't be stubborn. You don't have any more chances. Obediently let this old man plant the goo in you. This is your only chance to live." "Who are you?" "I'm the great elder of the ghost race, Red Lotus Emperor. I'm also one of the few saint-level alchemists in the endless race." Red Lotus Emperor said proudly. Lin Zhan let out a long sigh. "Looks like we have no choice but to fight today." The 3 emperors smiled in disdain. In their eyes, Lin Zhan wouldn't cry until he saw the coffin. Red Lotus Emperor wanted to say something more, but Lin Zhan suddenly attacked. In that instant, his purple gold spear shook as time accelerated. Starfall. A ball of golden light shot into the sky. The star was in front of him in a blink of an eye. At this moment, Red Lotus Monarch displayed the strength of an emperor as he slashed down with his saber. Rumble. The 100-meter-long blade light met Lin Zhan's Starfall head-on. A huge amount of energy shook the heaven and earth, and this attack was dispelled. He didn't expect that before Lin Zhan's main body attacked, his clone would appear and use the second Starfall. Chapter 926. Red Lotus Emperor didn't think that Lin Zhan would dare to attack first. He had seen Lin Zhan's battles and didn't think much of Lin Zhan. However, he underestimated Lin Zhan's battle talent and suffered a loss right from the start. After blocking the first Starfall, the second one came without any delay, and it was from the clone. Red Lotus Emperor couldn't dodge in time and was instantly injured. His chest was fractured and his organs were damaged. Although these injuries weren't enough to take the life of an emperor, it was enough to throw his pride out the window. He waved his blade crazily, forming a blade net that locked down the space around him, not giving Lin Zhan any chance to attack again. Lin Zhan's explosive attack was just a flash in the pan. Heartless Emperor and Azura Emperor immediately joined in, and the 3 emperors attacked together. The following period of time will be the most difficult period of Lin Zhan's life. Lin Zhan and his doppelganger stood back to back, and the Lance of Lantis and the purple golden spear formed a net of golden metal. Lin Zhan had no way out, so he chose to fight with his back to the wall. "You 3 want to kill me? It's not that easy." After swallowing the God Power Pill, Lin Jun's star power exploded. With a 40% increase in star power, Lin Jun's star power reached 1 billion. Such star power was enough to fight against emperors. The three emperors couldn't take down Lin Jun, who was fighting with his life on the line. Earth-shattering shockwaves shot through the clouds, and the ground shook from the battle. It was like the end of the world had arrived. Every sword chi that leaked out would create a valley. Every surge of spear light would shoot out a sinkhole. On the planet Graveyard, no one dared to get close. When immortals fought, it was best for little ghosts to stay away in case they got caught. However, there was still someone who didn't care about his life and actually got close. This person was Wen Tao. Most of the time, Wen Tao would admire his own courage. He was a person who loved being a reporter and was willing to sacrifice his life just to get the material he wanted. For the past 3 months, Wen Tao had been following Lin Jun's footsteps, recording everything about him and releasing it into the dimension. Sometimes he would even find Lin Jun and record some battle scenes. But most of the time, he could only interview Lin Jun through the dimensional universe to obtain first-hand information. The video he recorded of Lin Jun in the eye of the storm had already caused a huge reaction in the dimensional universe. More and more people saw all of this and were willing to watch Wen Tao's show. People hoped to see the final outcome. This was like a story, the growth diary of a genius warrior. In the hearts of many people, Lin Jun had already become the omnipotent protagonist. For example, Lin Jun's divine might destiny. Some people recognized this move and became deeply interested in Lin Jun. They found it hard to imagine how a warrior at the peak of divine perception like Lin Jun could cultivate such strength. However, after watching for a long time, people confirmed a thought. Lin Jun's strength was only slightly stronger among demigods. There was still a huge gap between him and a Regis Godfiend. Wen Tao had always hoped to capture a video of the battle between Lin Jun and a Regis Godfiend, but he knew that such matters couldn't be rushed. Wen Tao had long known that Lin Jun had gone deep into the vicinity of Blue Sea Planet, but Lin Jun hadn't told him the exact location. Wen Tao never expected that he would be lucky enough to witness the battle between Lin Jun and the 3 Regis Godfiends while wandering around the star field near Blue Sea Planet. That's great, that's great. This will be the most important chapter in the growth of a genius. Lin Jun, you have to work hard. As long as you don't die in this battle, you will be a true hero. Wen Tao was on a rock 50 kilometers away. He ignored the occasional cracks in the ground and the deadly energy turbulence that occasionally flew over his head. In his heart, he only wanted to record Lin Jun's shocking battle. However, Wen Tao believed that this was probably Lin Jun's last battle because the opponent was too strong. No matter how he calculated, Lin Jun would definitely not survive. Danger surrounded him. Lin Jun felt such immense pressure for the first time. This was a battle where he had no way to fight back. The 3 Regis Godfiends were too strong. Even though Lin Jun had taken the God Power Pill and his main body and Avatar Star Force had soared to 1 billion, he still didn't have the strength to fight back. He could only rely on his immovable mountain martial intent to hold on and not be defeated for the time being. These 3 people's attacks could only be described as earth-shattering. Strange moves were frequently used, and killing intent could appear at any time. As he dodged Crimson Lotus Monarch's saber, Azura King's trident brushed past the Avatar's throat. The main body swung his spear to save Lin Jun. Heartless Monarch's sword of ice slashed out 108,000 times in a row, each attack landing on a single point, forcibly breaking apart Lin Jun's spear defense. Crimson Lotus Monarch's saber slashed out from the side like a storm. The main body and Avatar's 4 legs were all within his attack range. The twin spears could no longer be swung freely like a flood dragon. Before he could block Crimson Lotus Monarch's attack, Azura King's trident arrived again, suppressing Lin Jun to the point where he couldn't even use his spear. Seeing Heartless Monarch preparing another wave of attacks, Lin Jun knew that he couldn't continue like this. In less than a minute, he would be cut to pieces by the 3 Regis Godfiends. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. This daddy will fight you to the death. Lin Jun fiercely gritted his teeth. There was no way he could win in this situation. The only way out was to fight to the death. Perhaps there was still a chance of survival. Facing the combined attacks of Heartless Monarch and Azura King, Lin Zhan's avatar advanced instead of retreating. Armor, transformation, enchanted metal. The 4 elemental flowers revolved, and a golden light shone from his body. He completely ignored the storm of attacks and waved the Lance of Lantis, striking out with 4 moves. The earth of spring, the fire of summer, the bleakness of autumn, and the cold of winter. The elements of earth, water, fire, and wind gathered from heaven and earth, forming a powerful air current. Attack against attack. Brat, you're King courting death. As the Azura King saw Lin Zhan's avatar approach without dodging, the trident in his hand trembled as he unleashed his ultimate skill. Heartless King also swung the sword in his hand expressionlessly. He dodged the sharp attacks and looked for openings. His sword turned into thousands of deadly poisonous snakes that slithered upward from strange angles and went straight for the clone's vital points. Pa. Countless attacks landed on the body of Lin Zhan's clone. In an instant, it was riddled with holes. This was the first time he had suffered such a violent blow ever since he had obtained the 5-elemental mutated Kirin clone. If it were any other life form, they would have already died. However, as long as Lin Zhan's original body was still alive, his avatar was still alive. No matter how strong the Azura King and Heartless King's attacks were, they still had a fatal weakness. They couldn't take the attacks of their avatars head-on. Hence, at this moment, Lin Zhan's original body was facing King Red Lotus alone. Even if King Red Lotus was alone, even if he was injured, he was still an emperor. It wouldn't be easy to take him down. Lin Zhan knew that his doppelganger was basically done for. After this battle, it would take a long time to recover and recover. His doppelganger had bought him less than 3 seconds. Within 3 seconds, Lin Zhan had to take down King Red Lotus. The ghost head saber descended from the sky with a soul-stirring howl. At this moment, Lin Zhan's mind was clear. He used shadowless steps and took a step to the side. One step to the open sky. King Red Lotus's attack missed, and he suddenly lost track of Lin Zhan. However, he didn't panic. In less than 0.1 seconds, he changed his moves, and the ghost head blade slashed 3,000 times. Lin Zhan's footwork changed, leaving behind a series of afterimages. It was hard to follow. What a good shadowless steps. Unfortunately, it can't stop me. King Red Lotus sneered and used a similar footwork. The 2 figures crossed each other, and within a 3-chi radius, there were thousands of them. Hoo-hoo-hoo. A series of wind whistled in their ears. Neither of them could catch a trace of the other. At this moment, it was a matter of who was faster. Second set, third set, fourth set. After using the 5th set of footwork, he still couldn't get rid of King Red Lotus. However, 2 seconds had already passed. The 6th set of footwork, thousands of footprints crossed each other. King Red Lotus staggered a step. He couldn't keep up with Lin Zhan's footwork anymore. Now's the time. In a fight between experts, one move could decide life and death. Lin Zhan kept his purple gold spear and condensed a sword ray in his palm. At this distance, the spear was no longer suitable. Slash! The sword ray swept past, and King Red Lotus dodged it. His body leaned back, and the sword ray swept past him. Roar! I'll let you have a taste of my black hole devour. The black hole beast transformed, and a black hole appeared. 1 billion astral points. Without more than 2 billion astral points, it was impossible to resist the black hole devour. King Red Lotus's back was covered in cold sweat. However, as a king-ranked expert, he obviously had more trump cards. He raised his hand, and a crystal wall appeared. Crystal wall, a super technique that blocks all energy forms. It's pure astral points. Your black hole devour is useless. King Red Lotus's hair danced in the wind, and his astral points were pushed to the limit. This crystal wall blocked all gravitational energy forms. The black hole devour couldn't break it for now. As long as he could hold on for half a second, he would win because Lin Jun's clone was about to die. Lin Jun roared, "Let's end this." From the reflection of the crystal wall, he could already see his clone being killed. It turned into a ray of light and returned to his body. King Azura and King Heartless were charging at him. However, he didn't move at all. A lotus flower bloomed on his forehead, and his armor turned into gold. He was going to use his immortal spirit body to block this attack. In the depths of his black hole, 3 destructive divine thunders spun and merged into one. The 3 divine thunders merged into one and descended from the sky. "Break for me, Kacha!" With a thunderous sound, King Red Lotus's crystal wall was broken. The black hole devourer's power was unstoppable. King Red Lotus, a king-ranked expert, couldn't resist the powerful gravitational force and was swallowed by the black hole. PFFF. What followed was the Heartless King's decapitation strike, which actually struck Lin Jun's head. The sword was only halfway through, but it couldn't enter. This was the power of the immortal spirit body. With one of the 3 dead, the tripartite array was broken. Lin Jun opened his hands, and space tore apart as he dove in. The head, which was only half connected to the neck, smiled strangely at King Heartless and King Azura. Chapter 9:27. Wen Tao's video created yet another classic. This was a battle filled with controversy. There were 2 core points of contention. One was whether Lin Jun won or lost. The other was whether Lin Jun had the right to be crowned king. Some people said that Lin Jun lost because Lin Jun clearly ran away in the end. If he continued to fight, he would definitely die. Running away was equivalent to losing. However, this point of view was refuted by many, because in this battle, Lin Jun fought 1 against 3 and killed Red Lotus Emperor in an extremely difficult situation. For a spirit will stage cultivator, this was already the greatest victory. Some people thought that Lin Jun did not have the qualifications to be crowned king. The reason why Lin Jun had such a brilliant result in this battle was because his battle tactics were appropriate. On the other hand, the 3 opponents had obviously underestimated him and were not prepared enough. If it wasn't for the God Power Pill and the Black Hole and Destructive Lightning, Lin Jun probably wouldn't even be able to beat 1 emperor. However, this point of view was mercilessly attacked by many. For example, when Tao said in the Dimension Universe, "Those who say that Lin Jun doesn't have the right to be crowned king are all idiots." Isn't Lin Jun's battle tactics a part of his strength? Isn't his black hole a powerful battle technique? The destructive lightning is also his own ability. How can it be attributed to luck? You said that the 3 emperors weren't prepared enough to deal with Lin Jun. Did Lin Jun fight them before? If you don't like it, you can go challenge the 3 emperors. Don't talk about spirit will. Even if you're a half god, let's see if you have any scraps left. It's like saying the grapes are sour when you can't eat them. When Tao's point of view was supported by many, Lin Jun had indeed won. The 3 emperors couldn't keep him here, and he even killed one of them. Wasn't this a win? However, there were still some people who questioned Lin Jun's qualifications. Lin Jun's strength is not bad, but I still think that he is not qualified to be a king. As everyone knows, to be a king, one must first be a 7-star warrior. Lin Jun's star level should not have reached that level yet. Also, since ancient times, most of the emperors were demigods. Among them, only a few were the Godstone realm. I've never even heard of a God realm cultivator. But now, a God realm cultivator wants to be emperor. How can he convince the masses? Many rigid and old-fashioned people still supported this point of view. They would not say that they were jealous of Lin Jun's strength, even though he was only at the peak of his spiritual force. They would seize on the fact that Lin Jun had not reached the 7-star standard and firmly deny that Lin Jun had the qualifications to be crowned king. In the dimensional universe, a huge war of words started. Everyone was having an intense debate about this issue. There were almost as many people who supported Lin Jun as there were people who opposed Lin Jun. Of course, this was referring to the surface races. On the side of the endless races, not many people supported Lin Jun. After all, Lin Jun was their enemy. However, everyone had to admit that Lin Jun's battle strength was close to that of an emperor. And if he went all out, even those veteran emperors might not be able to withstand him. More and more people felt proud of Lin Jun. Many people even called Lin Jun the #1 genius of the surface races, the hope of the surface races revival. Many people were even looking for Lin Jun everywhere. At the last moment, Lin Jun tore through space and left. At that time, in that heavily injured state, who knew where he would run to? He probably had no way of controlling his destination. The only thing that could be confirmed was that Lin Jun was still in the Eye of Stormstar Zone. The surface races wanted to find their hero, while the endless races wanted to find Lin Jun and kill him. A long search for Lin Jun began. But Lin Jun, from the day he disappeared, it was as if he had evaporated from the world. There was no trace of him. After entering the space crack, Lin Jun could no longer identify the correct direction. And when his body was badly injured, he even swallowed the memories of Red Lotus Monarch. It could be said that this was the most difficult time for Lin Jun. His body was heavily injured. If not for the immortal spirit body, he would have died long ago. The sea of memories attacked his nerves, causing him to have a splitting headache. The God Power Pill's effect had also passed. After his star power returned to normal, it dropped by 40%. His body was extremely weak. He still had to identify the direction in the space crack. He really couldn't do it. He didn't dare to walk too far. If he ran out of the eye of the storm, there wouldn't be such a good place to cultivate anymore. Lin Jun followed his instincts and stumbled around for a while. Then, he found a place that he thought was more or less in the center of the storm and charged out again. Just as he charged out of the space crack, a dazzling lightning descended from the sky and struck his body. His body instinctively went numb. Just as he wanted to move, the 9 heavens astral wind howled and almost blew his skin open. Rumble. Lightning fell continuously. Every strike was almost fatal. Lin Jun, who had not recovered yet, was heavily injured again. The surrounding storm made it impossible for him to open his eyes. Lin Jun had no choice but to use the only method he could use. Polymorph. His body turned into a small stone and fell freely from the sky. A gust of wind and sand swept over. Lin Jun mixed with the wind and sand. After turning into a stone, there was no longer a big target and no longer attracted lightning. Lin Jun could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Lin Jun floated freely in the sky along with the wind. Transforming into a human form was not good for the recovery of his injuries. But Lin Jun had no other choice and could only accept his fate. The astral wind became stronger and stronger, blowing Lin Jun and a pile of sand to the ground. Lin Jun's body hit the ground heavily and took root in the soil. He tried to lower his body as much as possible to avoid the wind from the sky. The wind was getting stronger and stronger. If his main body appeared, it might really be dangerous. Lin Jun sank deep into the soil. Only then did he have time to feel the situation here. The sky was like a pitch-black pot lid covering the top of his head. The black clouds in the sky, driven by the wind, formed a huge funnel-like vortex. An unbelievably thick tornado was the culprit of the vortex. No, it wasn't a vortex. Looking into the distance, the tornado stirred the sky into pieces. The black clouds twisted irregularly in opposite directions. It was daunting. Within the black clouds, bolts of lightning flashed chaotically, emitting dazzling rays of light. Occasionally, a bolt of lightning would flow down and strike a certain spot, causing the earth to tremble. What the hell is this place? Is this still the planet's graveyard? Feeling the unbelievably strong power of heaven and earth here, Lin Jun was a little puzzled. Valley of Wind and Thunder. Such a thought suddenly rose in Lin Jun's mind. That's right, it's here. Looking around, hundreds of planets were crowded together, forming the shape of an incomparably huge valley. This was the place where the final battle of the two gods took place. It was also the place where the two gods and their guards were buried. Although there were very few people who died here, those who died were all elites. Even the worst was at the emperor level. There were even some Hall of the Exalted Masters who died here, including the two high and mighty gods. Therefore, although this place was not very big, The number of treasures it contained was not small at all, and they were all good things. The Eye of the Storm opened twice, but the Valley of Wind and Thunder had not been explored. The relics of the two gods had not been obtained by anyone. Ordinary people would not dare to come to the Valley of Wind and Thunder at all, because coming here would be suicide. Lin Jun ran around recklessly, but he did not expect to come here. If Lin Jun had not accidentally approached the ground, he would not have been able to pass through the wind and thunder layer in the sky. Moreover, he had the shape-shifting skill, which allowed him to turn into a lifeless stone, which allowed him to escape disaster. So this is the place where the two gods died. There must be a lot of good things here, and no one is competing with me. Lin Jun was secretly happy, but he knew that it was definitely not the time for him to get up and look for treasures. The terrifying wind and thunder in the sky were simply a forbidden zone for life. This was also the core of the Eye of the Storm. After 49 years, the storm that kept people away would start again from here and spread throughout the entire star field. If he wanted to move in the Valley of Wind and Thunder, he must first have the power to resist the wind and thunder. Lin Jun had experienced the astral wind and thunder. Even if he was in a good state, he could not last for more than a minute in his armor state. If he wanted to explore the valley, it was absolutely impossible under such circumstances. Lin Jun must have a stronger body. Shape-shifting is not conducive to the recovery of my injuries. I must first gain a foothold in this place. At least I can survive in the form of a human, then I can think about other things. With a thought, Lin Jun's treasure hunting vine was released. He let the treasure hunting vine slowly appear in the storm. The tough vine was extremely wide and thick. It looked for a place on the ground that was relatively sheltered from the wind, and then slowly took root. Soon, the treasure hunting vine formed a small nest. The treasure hunting vine's vines did not attract lightning, so there were no lightning strikes. If it was just a place that was sheltered from the wind, the treasure hunting vine could barely do the job. However, it was very difficult to take root underground. The treasure hunting vine tried its best to drill for a long time, but it was only less than 2 meters underground. With this speed, it was undoubtedly unrealistic to expect it to explore the huge valley that was formed by hundreds of planets. Looks like I have to level up the treasure hunting vine again and reach the celestial realm stage. Only then will it be possible to drill underground. Lin Jun did not expect to be able to explore the valley immediately. It was good enough that he could temporarily settle down. There was finally a place to settle down. Little Rock transformed into a human again, and Lin Jun appeared in the nest surrounded by the treasure hunting vine. Phew, I can finally survive for a while. That bastard Heartless King, I almost killed him. Under the effect of the immortal spirit body, the huge wound on Lin Jun's neck began to heal. The weakened state of the divine power pill will only pass after 3 days. Within these 3 days, my injuries can basically be healed. However, the most important thing now is to absorb the chaotic memories in my head. Chapter 928. King Qi Lian was the strongest person Lin Jun had killed so far. Killing King Qi Lian this time was indeed a fluke. It was more attributed to the other party's lack of understanding of Lin Jun's tactical trump cards and his underestimation of the enemy. If they knew each other well, Lin Jun might not be a match for King Qi Lian even if it was one-on-one. Of course, this referred to raw strength. For example, in a competition of star power. In fact, Lin Jun had many trump cards. In a real battle, he could often erupt with amazing combat strength. King Qi Lian's memories were much more than any memories Lin Jun had absorbed before. After all, King Qi Lian came from the endless races. What he learned was very different from what Lin Jun had experienced in the past. Just in alchemy alone, the endless races were very different from the races on the ground. The races on the ground paid attention to the heat of the pills and paid more attention to the method. The endless races alchemy focused more on the control of soul power, mind power, and so on. The biggest difference between saint-level alchemists and other alchemists was that they could use heart refinement. Heart refinement was to get rid of the restrictions of the alchemy furnace. One could condense alchemy fire in the palm or condense alchemy fire in the void, directly calcining it out of thin air. Whoever could do it more concisely and quickly was the key to advancing to the saint level. They believed that this way of alchemy was closer to the nature of heaven and earth. After removing the so-called craftsmanship, the pills would be more compatible with the martial artist's soul after being formed, and the medicinal effect will be maximized. Such alchemy techniques have been passed down for countless years and had formed a unique system. Lin Jun thought that he could master this alchemy technique in 3 days, but when he really absorbed it, he realized that this was almost the process of learning alchemy from scratch. Lin Jun did not immediately immerse himself in learning alchemy. Instead, he first cultivated time deceleration. In this small house of the treasure-hunting vine, Lin Jun first comprehended time deceleration. After about half a year, he finally cultivated time deceleration to 8 times. With 8 times time deceleration, Lin Jun began to focus on learning alchemy. The scene of heaven and earth collapsing outside could no longer have any effect on Lin Jun. Lin Jun already had the strength of a peak saint rank alchemist. According to what he knew, once an alchemist reached the peak of saint rank, there was basically no way out. The only thing they could do was to learn more pill recipes and master the refinement of more powerful medicines. However, the Red Lotus King's memory didn't think so. He believed that the saint level wasn't the real peak of alchemist. There was a limit above the saint level. Divine grade alchemist. God-ranked alchemist was equivalent to the realm of gods. It was a path that was much more difficult than practicing martial arts. Although it was difficult for gods to reach that realm, there were still many of them. However, God-ranked alchemists only existed in legends in King Qi Lian's memory. Red Lotus Monarch wanted to pursue the path of a god-tier alchemist, but his knowledge had already limited him to a certain framework. He didn't know where the path to god-tier lay. The last idea he came up with was to absorb the memories of another saint-level alchemist from the surface race. If the knowledge of 2 saint-level alchemists were combined into one, they might be able to walk a new path. Of course, Red Lotus Monarch didn't have Lin Jun's ability to devour memories. He planned to nurture goo worms and control the saint-rank alchemists on the ground, slowly absorbing and digesting their memories. This was a stupid method, but also the only way. It was precisely because of this that when King Shura called him over, he immediately agreed. It was Lin Jun's identity as a saint-level alchemist that tempted him. Unfortunately, he lost his life because of it. During this period of time, Lin Jun basically learned the alchemy methods of the endless races and began to put them into practice. He tried to familiarize himself with the methods of these alchemists as much as possible. At the same time, he continued to digest King Qi Lian's memory. There was still time to think. He thought about the advantages and disadvantages of the alchemy methods of the 2 races and summarized them. He had already reached the peak of saint level in the alchemy of the races on the surface and the endless races. He was also clear about the shortcomings. The alchemy techniques on the surface indeed lacked the creativity of the endless races. They focused too much on the maturity of the pills and ignored the essence. However, in some details and techniques, they surpassed the endless races by a lot. The endless races' alchemy was closer to the essence, but their grasp of the details was far inferior to the races on the surface, so it was impossible for them to go too far. At this time, Lin Jun already knew his path to becoming a god-level alchemist. That was to combine the alchemy methods of the 2 races into one and create a path that belonged to him, Lin Jun. He didn't get the god-level pill formula from King Qi Lian, but Lin Jun wasn't discouraged. With his understanding of medicinal properties and alchemy, Lin Jun could completely figure out the mystery of the god-level pill formula by himself. This wasn't particularly difficult. What his clone was doing was analyzing the requirements of the god-level pill and obtaining accurate data. From there, he would determine the medicinal ingredients and the refining method. This process still required repeated experiments, but it could be done in the dimensional universe. Now that he had some ideas, as long as the pill to reach the god level was refined, Lin Jun would rely on this pill to become a god-level alchemist. Becoming a god-level alchemist and entering the god level was important, but it wasn't something that could be done in a day or two. Lin Jun's main body had other things to do. He had to walk out of the treasure-seeking Vine's hut. Since he had already come to the Valley of Wind and Thunder, Lin Jun couldn't return empty-handed. He had to go out and search for the treasures here. Although the Nine Heavens astral wind here was fierce, Lin Jun was in good condition at the moment. He had to adapt to the Nine Heavens astral wind and lightning storm here. If he didn't go out, he could only stay in this hut forever. His body could be transformed into armor, but he couldn't use metal because metal would attract the lightning in the valley. That was an act of suicide. Even Lin Jun couldn't take out any weapons, whether it was dual swords or dual spears, because that would attract the lightning. Chris, lock onto the location of the final battle between the gods. Master, I'm going to set off. Chris immediately gave Lin Jun a set of coordinates. Master, follow this direction. As long as you don't give up halfway, you will definitely reach your destination one day. Armor transformation. Black scales covered his body, and Lin Jun was like a primordial beast. He stealthily stretched out a hand from the tree, seeking Vine's hut. See, a blade-like astral wind streaked across his palm. The wind speed had already reached sublight speed. Even though his palm was covered in scales, Lin Jun still felt a piercing pain. Damn, if I hadn't entered this place after transforming into armor, I would have been torn apart by this astral wind. After feeling that he could still endure it for a short period of time, Lin Jun took a deep breath and walked out of the treasure-seeking Vine's hut. His skin rippled like water in an instant, and his bones made creaking sounds. Putting away the treasure-seeking vine, Lin Jun turned it into a red thread and wrapped it around his wrist. Then, he began to walk with difficulty in the valley. Although this place was called a valley, it was extremely vast. It was probably comparable to the distance between Earth and Mars. Such a distant place could only be described with astronomical figures. It was simply too difficult to walk on foot. With his body in armor, Lin Jun trudged through the astral wind with great difficulty. After walking for 3 minutes, Lin Jun felt that he couldn't hold on any longer. He had no choice but to set up the tree-seeking Vine's hut and hide inside it again. After 3 minutes of trudging, blood began to seep out from under the scales. It's really difficult. However, this is also normal. If not for this howling wind and thunder, this valley would have been turned upside down long ago. A person's adaptability is the strongest. My body needs to move forward, so I have to block the wind and thunder. I can only walk for 3 minutes now, but perhaps I'll be able to improve a little next time. In any case, with the immortal spirit body recovering, I can quickly enter the next round of training. The power of the immortal spirit body circulated, and the lotus flower slowly bloomed. Lin Jun's injuries were also quickly recovering. About 10 minutes later, Lin Jun left the tree-seeking Vine's hut and began his second trek through the valley. This time, Lin Jun's time reached 3 minutes and 1 second. After holding on for 1 second longer than the previous time, Lin Jun had no choice but to rest again. It's so difficult. It's not easy to move freely in this place. However, it's a good thing that I've improved. It means that I've adapted to the astral wind a little. I'll try to improve next time. After another 10 minutes, Lin Jun began his third trek. This time, he increased his time by 1 second, reaching 3 minutes and 2 seconds. Although it was only a 1 second improvement each time, Lin Jun wasn't discouraged at all. After resting, he stepped on the path again. This time, he increased his time by 2 seconds, reaching 3 minutes and 4 seconds. Moreover, the bleeding under the scales had also been slightly alleviated. This improvement was so slight that if it weren't for Lin Jun's extremely sharp senses, he wouldn't have noticed it at all. Chris, is the amount of bleeding this time a little less than the previous time? Did you record it? At this moment, Chris didn't transform into a little girl squatting on Lin Jun's shoulder. Instead, she returned to the interior of the dimensional universe because she felt that if her white dress fluttered in the wind, Lin Jun might see something and she would be at a disadvantage. Lin Jun couldn't understand the strange way of thinking of artificial intelligence life. Fortunately, this didn't affect Chris's calculations. Master, the amount of bleeding has indeed decreased. It's 0.04 grams less. This is a visible improvement. It's good that there's an improvement. I'm not going the wrong direction, right? There's no mistake. The direction you're currently heading in is the direction of the planet where the two gods died. According to your current speed, you'll reach that planet in about 1,500 years and 70 years. Lin Zhan smiled. I don't need you to pour cold water on me. Do you think I'll never improve? After I gradually adapt to the astral wind here, the distance of more than 1,000 years won't be considered a distance at all. Chapter 9:29. The arduous days passed day by day. In such an environment, Lin Zhan was still improving at a rapid pace. His body was greatly tempered by the 9 heavens astral wind. From the initial 3 minutes, it gradually increased to 5 minutes, then 10 minutes. The bleeding of the scales gradually stopped, and the gaps between the scales became incomparably tough. Under the effect of time deceleration, Lin Zhan's time did not pass quickly. Even so, 3 years had passed. These 3 years, to Lin Zhan, were more than 20 years. In the outside world, there were some changes to the God's Reward exchange. Hey, did you see that? The God's Reward has been refreshed. I saw it. The previous treasures have basically been exchanged for divine crystals, absolute treasures, and inheritance crystal balls have all been exchanged. Of course, there'll be new ones. The prizes this time look pretty good. The martial artists in the outside world were all discussing and checking. The quality of the second batch of treasures was much better than the first batch. For example, although there were still 9 absolute treasures, most of them were defensive absolute treasures. Their prices were also much higher than before. The first batch of absolute treasures were all below 10,000 divine stones. This time, they were all above 10,000 divine stones. The previous 3,000 divine crystals were all raised to 10,000 divine crystals this time. The gods were all calculative. They knew that even if the prices of the prizes were raised, the martial artists in the eye of the storm would still buy them. This was because if they did not buy them, the divine stones in their hands would lose their effect. Even if the martial artists were unwilling to take this opportunity to amass wealth, they could only pinch their noses and accept it. This time, there was an additional special function, which was designated exchange. For example, if a martial artist needed something that was not available here, they could leave a message on the exchange panel and request to buy it. The god would give them a price based on the item. It was a private order. At the entrance of the Valley of Wind and Thunder, a luxurious carriage pulled by 9 dragons was parked there. 1 black and 100 titled demigods stood at the entrance and looked in. At the same time, they were talking. The black-clothed demigod said, "Isn't this Valley of Wind and Thunder a little too terrifying? As far as I know, there's no wind in the core area of the storm. Why is the storm even stronger here?" The white-clothed demigod said, "There's a reason for this. The 4 great deities changed the direction of the wind in the eye of the storm, making it slower every year. Only 49 years of 9 million years were squeezed out, allowing people to enter the eye of the storm without fear of the astral winds. But in reality, where did the storm that was supposed to occur during these 49 years go? It can't have disappeared into thin air, right? Actually, it's concentrated here." Another black-clothed demigod sighed. "All the storms are concentrated here, but our master still has the ability to explore deeper. As expected of a Hall of the Exalted Supermaster. Yeah, the Hall of the Exalted is really strong. No wonder there are only 100 Hall of the Exalted in the entire surface race." Hearing the white-clothed demigod sigh, the black-clothed demigod said, "No, it's not just 100 Hall of the Exalted. It's just that there are only 100 Hall of the Exalted members. Not everyone in the Hall of the Exalted stays there forever. For example, our master laughing overall life. After this storm ends, it's about time for him to refine the divinity crystal and break through to the divine state. As long as he becomes a god, there'll naturally be an empty spot in the Hall of the Exalted. As for the rest, it'll be up to the titled demigods to fight for the final spot. Maybe you and I will also have a chance to enter the Hall of the Exalted." "Forget it. Don't joke around. I know very well that those who can become members of the Hall of the Exalted are all super freaks. Our master's strength is already at the peak in my eyes, but he's still ranked at the bottom of the Hall of the Exalted. I don't have any hope at all. The black-clothed demigod also sighed. Yeah, let's stop dreaming. You and I are almost at the peak of the demigods. Our talent has determined that we won't be able to improve much. Back then, we also failed to break through to the divine state. Our only hope is to refine the divinity crystal. When our master breaks through, you and I will give it a try. Okay, but the divinity crystal is a little expensive now. I wonder if our master is coming out. The two titled demigods who were talking suddenly stood up. At the entrance of the valley of wind and thunder, laughing over all life, rushed out. This super expert of the Hall of the Exalted looked worse than a beggar. His body was covered in wounds and blood, and his clothes were tattered. He looked like an African refugee who had been bombed. Laughing over all life, hurriedly opened the door of the dragon carriage and entered. The hot spring water and medicinal bath were already prepared for him. It had the effect of recovering blood and energy. Laughing over all life fell into the pool and soaked for a while before he heaved a sigh of relief. What a freakish place. The black and white demigods looked at each other. The white demigod asked, "Master, did everything go well today?" "Not very well. With my body's strength and astral power, it is difficult to withstand the nine heavens hurricane for a long time. If I didn't return quickly enough, I might have died in there. If even our master can't pass through it, then no one can enter the valley of wind and thunder." Laughing over all life thought for a while. If it was before, I might have chosen to give up and explore the crisscross continent. I might be able to get some good rewards. But now, the gods have opened a new reward panel, and I can reserve some things. How can I give up? What do you mean, my master? I want to reserve a defensive treasure that can withstand wind and thunder. As long as it can withstand half of the wind and thunder's power, I will be able to come and go freely in the valley of wind and thunder. Then it must be very expensive. Even if I have to go bankrupt, I must get it. As long as I can get the god's treasure, all this is nothing. At this point, laughing over all life's expression suddenly turned serious. Today I saw something strange. What did you see, my master? The black and white gods asked. Laughing over all life thought for a moment. The wind was too strong, so I didn't have time to record it. But I vaguely remember that it was a footprint. This sentence shocked the black and white gods. No way. There are footprints in the valley of wind and thunder. Could it have been left behind by the ancients? My master should be the only one who tried to pass through here. Laughing over all life shook his head. I didn't see it clearly. I can only go in after I get the defensive treasure. Hopefully, I can confirm this. If there really is someone in there, laughing over all life paused. I have a feeling that if someone really went in, then that person must be the one who exchanged for the god's inheritance crystal ball. Inside the valley of wind and thunder, Lin Jin's clone was trying to make pills in the treasure-hunting Tong's hut. He raised one hand, and a bright green flame burned in his palm. He didn't need a pill furnace. He could make pills with his bare hands. The flame's temperature was constantly being adjusted, flickering between bright and dark. There couldn't be the slightest deviation in this process. Even the slightest difference in temperature could lead to failure. When 3,000 degrees was needed, it could only be 3,000 degrees. 3,001 or 2,999 wouldn't do. One by one, the medicinal herbs were mixed and placed into the palm of his hand. The process was complicated and confusing, causing people to be dazzled. Hiss. The flame in his palm suddenly twisted a few times, and then its color dimmed until it was extinguished. I failed. Lin Jun let out a breath and opened his eyes. Fortunately, everything went as expected. Although I failed, it wasn't a problem with my technique. It was because I was missing a medicinal ingredient, the beast god's blood. The beast god's blood referred to the blood of astral beast martial artists who had cultivated to godhood. When this blood was added to pills, it would be greatly beneficial to martial artists of the same race. If Lin Jun wanted to make pills for the god realm, this blood was essential. Now that I can order it, I can try to order it from the gods and see if I can get it. As long as I get this medicinal ingredient, I'll reach the god realm in no time. He raised his palm, and the exchange panel appeared. Lin Jun tapped a few times in the air and opened the private order panel. Order a portion of beast god's blood. Weight, concentration. After listing his requirements, the price was generated. 55,000 god stones. Lin Jun's eyes narrowed slightly. This price was not low. The god's inheritance crystal ball was only 100,000 god stones. This blood was insignificant to a beast god, but since it had something to do with gods, the price would not be cheap. Looks like I'll have to collect more god stones. My pill refining work can be considered to have come to an end for now. With a thought, the treasure-hunting tongue's hut disappeared. His clone also entered the main body's inner world. Lin Jun's main body appeared. He stood in the nine-heaven squall. His body was covered in armor. His black scales shone with a dim light. The piercing squall could collapse mountains, but it could not move his scales at all. Compared to 3 years ago, Lin Jun's body had grown significantly after transforming into armor. Previously, he was 5 meters tall. Now, he was more than 3 meters tall. His muscles were firm and lean. This proved that Lin Jun had matured in his galactic beast form. If he transformed into a black hole beast now, his body would be more than 50 meters long. He would truly be a leviathan among the stars. After 3 years of hard work, I can finally get used to the nine-heaven squall here. In my armor form, the squall has no effect on me. Even in my normal state, I can withstand it for a few hours. Now that I can move around here, I should go look for the treasure. Chris, help me determine the most likely place to hide the treasure. Master, aren't you going to the location of the final battle between the two gods? There's no hurry. Let's get the god realm medicinal ingredients first. Chris quickly calculated and soon came up with an answer. Master, according to my understanding of this place, 100,000 kilometers to the east, 2 regal lords have fallen. 250,000 kilometers to the south, 1 regal lord and 1 hall of the exalted have fallen. Which side do you want to go to first? Since they're a fallen hall of the exalted experts, I must go there. 250,000 kilometers is not that far. Chapter 930. Amstel Planet. This is where the hall of the exalted warrior, Amstel, fell. Lin Jun rubbed his hands excitedly. Let's start then. I want to see what good things the hall of the exalted warrior left behind. He raised his hand, and the treasure-hunting vine appeared again, trying to go deeper into the ground. However, the ground of the Valley of Wind and Thunder was hard beyond imagination. After tens of millions of years of strong winds, the ground was harder than steel, and the treasure-hunting vine could not penetrate it. You're quite stubborn. If you don't break the turtle shell on the ground, you won't be able to get the treasure inside. Let me strengthen you. Lin Jun raised his hand, and the flower of 4 elements in his doppelganger rotated. Powerful metal and earth energy began to flow into the treasure-hunting vine. The metal broke the surface of the ground, and the earth element seeped in. With the help of mind power, the treasure-hunting vine still had some difficulty moving forward. Lin Jun observed for a while and gently shook his head. No, this is a planet. If I explore it meter by meter, I'll have to explore it for a long time. The treasure-hunting vine is still not tough enough. Only when I enter the divine realm will the treasure-hunting vine be able to move freely in the Valley of Wind and Thunder. As for now, I'll have to search for it myself. Lin Jun retracted the treasure-hunting vine and let it wrap around his wrist. The treasure-hunting vine stretched out a little and pointed directly to the ground, where the treasure was buried. Gold was attached to the scales, and it went deep into the ground. After the armor transformation, the huge claws were like excavators. With a swipe of the claws, a large piece of the ground that was harder than steel was cut off. This was also thanks to the training from the Nine Skies astral wind, which made Lin Jun's body stronger. Otherwise, he would not be able to move freely in the Valley of Wind and Thunder. Swish! Swish! Huge pieces of soil broke open like tofu. Lin Jun was like a pangolin, quickly disappearing under the ground. Neither the soil nor the underground rock layer could stop Lin Jun's sharp claws. After 3 years of training, The sharpness of my claws after the armor transformation is comparable to a supreme spiritual treasure, almost second only to an ultimate treasure. This power is really amazing. In front of them was a large vein of refined iron. It was normal for there to be a vein of or on a planet. The iron ore was black and incomparably hard. With a swipe of its claws, a large piece of iron ore was directly broken. With another claw, Lin Jun wanted to dig out a hole here. Clang! A divine stone fell from the edge of the iron ore and appeared in Lin Jun's line of sight. Roar! Godstone! I actually found a divine stone. In the past, it was always the treasure-hunting tongue that searched for the divine stones. He didn't have the thrill of personally experiencing it. This was the first time Lin Jun had found a divine stone. Lin Jun kept the godstone in his hand and looked at the direction the treasure-hunting tongue was pointing. He knew that he was not far from the location of the Hall of the Exalted Martial Artist's relics. With motivation, Lin Jun's digging speed sped up, and he quickly made his way to the core of the planet. After descending several thousand meters, Lin Jun stopped. Along the way, he had found hundreds of divine stones, and the iron or area in front of him had come to an end. There was a cold aura in front of him that made Lin Jun feel a bit of danger. Strange. Even if it's a martial artist from the Hall of the Exalted, they have all fallen. Could there be any threat to their lives? Lin Jun raised his vigilance and swung his claws again, breaking the last area of iron ore. A rotten aura that had been sealed for countless years came from the front. At the end of the iron or area, there was actually a hole. Lin Jun's body landed, and only then did he realize that there was another world here. The surrounding gray sky, the vast land, the mountains, and the dry river. This slightly familiar scene made Lin Jun immediately realize where he had come to. This was the inner world of a fallen martial artist. Those iron ores actually existed to protect the inner world. Chris, when a martial artist falls, shouldn't the inner world fall apart? Why is there still an inner world here? Master, after a martial artist goes through the god realm, the inner world will tend to stabilize. If a martial artist suddenly dies in a battle, the inner world will not be preserved. However, if a martial artist dies slowly, and with some special conditions, a part of the inner world can be preserved. Can you see if this world is complete? Lin Jun walked forward and quickly realized that this was only a part of the inner world, and it was broken. It's not complete. It's only 1,000th the size of a normal inner world. But what's the use of preserving this thing? Of course it's useful. To be able to preserve a part of the inner world, it can preserve some important things, such as the largest part of the world stone and the things that he thinks are important. Lin Jun nodded and looked into the distance. At the center of the inner world, a huge world stone was suspended there. That was the core of the inner world. After the transformation of the divine stone realm, it could no longer be considered a world stone. A world stone was a cosmos crystal, and this was a divine stone. This divine stone was already broken, but a large part of it was still preserved. Lin Jun took a few big strides and arrived in front of this huge divine stone. Chris, calculate how many divine stones there are. Master, I've calculated. There are about 13,500 divine stones. Lin Jun nodded slightly. Great. As expected of a Hall of Fame expert. If it's in its complete state, there should be more than 20,000 divine stones. With that, Lin Jun stepped forward and was about to put this divine stone into his inner world. Just as he was about 100 meters away from the huge divine stone, there was a sudden change. An unbelievably powerful spiritual attack fell from the sky and fiercely bombarded Lin Jun's spiritual sea. What is this? Lin Jun had goosebumps all over his body. He gathered his spiritual power, and his sky-blue spiritual power collided with the spiritual attack. Bang! Like a drop of water falling into space, circles of ripples appeared in the air. Lin Jun only felt a wave of dizziness, and his body staggered back a few steps before he could barely stand. His brain felt like it was being pricked by a needle, and it was extremely painful. Lin Jun took a few breaths of cold air and rubbed his head with both hands for a while before he recovered. Oh my God, what happened? I feel like I was hit by a spiritual reader stronger than me. But didn't the master of this place already die? Chris was also floating on Lin Jun's shoulder at this time. Her big eyes blinked back and forth, proving that she was calculating quickly. Master, I know why. Tell me what happened. The owner of this place is indeed dead, but when he died, he didn't die suddenly. Instead, he died slowly. Therefore, although his body is gone, his spiritual force and obsession were left behind due to the space being sealed. This is called a remnant soul. Remnant soul? Yes, it is his obsession. The remnant soul will guard the most important thing to him. He has no rationality or thoughts, only instinct. This God Stone is what he wants to protect. Any life that comes close to the God Stone will be attacked by the remnant soul, which is the spiritual attack you just suffered. Fortunately, the Master's spiritual power is strong enough. If it was a Pinnacle Diamond spiritual reader, I'm afraid he would have been killed by the remnant soul. I see. Is the situation in the eye of the storm like this? It is possible. The Valley of Wind and Thunder itself is a world isolated from the outside world, which is more conducive to the preservation of remnant souls. As long as it is not a sudden death, it is possible to do this. Damn it, the Master is already dead. What is the use of keeping these God Stone treasures? What a miser. Lin Jun cursed. This situation was quite a headache for him. So I can't get close to the God Stone now. So I can't collect these God Stones? Theoretically, yes. In other people's inner worlds, you can't collect them at will. So, if you want to get the God Stone, you must first get close to it. During this process, the tireless remnant soul will continue to attack you. The closer you get, the stronger the attack will be. Does the remnant soul not know fatigue? Will it keep attacking? Yes, the remaining inner world gives it almost eternal spiritual power. Because the aura of this inner world is compatible with the remnant soul, they all come from the same master. Other people can't even fight back here. They can only resist. If the master doesn't want to be attacked, then you have to retreat. The remnant soul's attack range is about 100 meters in radius. After leaving this range, the remnant soul will not attack you. What if I collect the God Stone? Then the inner world will collapse, and the remnant soul will lose its support and naturally dissipate. Lin Jun nodded. He completely understood. It was not easy to collect these large quantities of God Stones. One needed to resist the remnant soul's continuous attack until one could withstand it and get close to the God Stone to collect it. More than 10,000 God Stones, and there seems to be a treasure in the God Stone. I can't refuse these things. I must get the Hall of the Exalted level treasure. Lin Jun did not think about the God's treasure at this time. If the Hall of the Exalted was like this, then the God's treasure would be the same. If he went there now, he would probably be killed by the remnant soul. One step at a time. First, he would get the Hall of the Exalted level treasure. Isn't it just resisting the spiritual attack? This is also a process of training my spiritual power. It's just pain, I can withstand it. Lin Jun took a deep breath and strode forward, once again entering the 100-meter range. There was no spiritual attack. Lin Jun was puzzled and stepped into the range of 99 meters. Hiss! Another spiritual attack hit Lin Jun's sea of consciousness hard. This time, Lin Jun withstood it. Lin Jun managed to withstand the attack by relying on his mental strength, which he had been prepared for. However, the impact this time was obviously stronger than the previous one. Lin Jun almost fell to the ground. Master, please pay attention. Every 10 meters you move forward, there will be a new spiritual attack. However, if you stop now, there won't be any more attacks in this range. If someone competes with you, then whoever gets close to the God Stone first will get it. Chapter 9:31. Lin Jun had underestimated the power of the human hall's level. Every 10 meters forward was a fierce spiritual challenge. Each spiritual attack was stronger and stronger, to the point that it could even damage a person's soul. According to Chris, because the remnant soul relied on the inner world, its spiritual power was almost infinitely strong. As it got closer, it could mobilize more and more spiritual power to attack. The spiritual attack couldn't be avoided. No matter who it was, they could only resist it. If they couldn't, they would die. Every time, Lin Jun had to adjust his breathing for a long time to make his spiritual power highly concentrated. Only then could he resist the spiritual attack and not have a mental breakdown or brain death. This was a difficult process. Every step forward took longer and longer. From 100 meters to 90 meters, it only took a few minutes, but from 90 meters to 80 meters, it took 2 hours. From 80 meters to 70 meters, it took more than a day of preparation. From 70 meters to 60 meters, Lin Jun prepared for 7 days. Every time he had a splitting headache, Lin Jun would forcibly divert his attention and begin to comprehend the time deceleration, the all-heaven escape technique, and the limitless sword art. 50 meters, 40 meters, Lin Jun was gradually approaching. Now, in the eye of the storm, the most popular thing was defensive treasures. The martial artists all thought of using defensive treasures to resist the wind and thunder in the Wind and Thunder Valley. After all, the martial artists in the eye of the storm were basically considered geniuses. Who didn't want to see what the gods had left behind? Although most people didn't have the ability to exchange for defensive treasures, there were still many who could. Those who belonged to a family would gather their strength and let their main characters get the divine stones to order. Those who belonged to a team would give the divine stones to the team leader and let the team leader exchange for the treasures. Those who didn't have a family or a large team would start to buy the divine stones and use all their wealth to exchange. Treasures, cultivation methods, pills, treasure maps, and other valuable things could be traded at this time. The price of the divine stone soared. Many people saw that there was no hope of entering the Wind and Thunder Valley, so they simply sold the divine stones in their hands. Now, a temporary trading market had even formed on a few asteroids in the periphery of the Thunderstorm Valley. Regardless of whether it was the surface races or the endless races, they had temporarily reached a small agreement here, which was that no violence was allowed in the trading market. Otherwise, it would be considered a sabotage and everyone would have the right to punish them. This was not a joke. If you broke the deal and affected the others from entering the Valley of Wind and Thunder, you would definitely die without a corpse. Even your own race would stab you in the back at any time. Under such large-scale transactions, more and more people were able to exchange for defensive true treasures. Even though the price of defensive true treasures was skyrocketing, there were still many people who succeeded. Those who had obtained defensive treasures that could withstand the 9 heavens, astral winds, and lightning within the Wind and Thunder Valley finally began to enter the valley. The Eye of the Storm star system was similar to other star systems in that it was oval in shape. At the top of this oval, there was an asteroid. This small planet was similar to Neptune. It was a planet with life. Flowing water flowed freely on it, and it was covered in lush greenery. The environment was incomparably beautiful. If it was in a densely populated star system, it would be a tourist attraction. There was a square palace on the asteroid. In the palace, there were 4 seats. Behind each seat, there was a seat. The 4 of them sat on the seats. In front of them, there was a screen floating out of thin air. There were countless small screens on it. On the small screens, there was the situation of various places in the eye of the storm. It was as if there were countless monitors monitoring everything in the eye of the storm. From time to time, a small screen would flash, and a string of messages would be sent out. Those were the exchange requests made by the martial artists in the eye of the storm. The person behind the seat would provide the martial artist with what he or she needed according to his or her request. With a thought, an energy body of a small angel would disappear into the void with the item and arrive at the martial artist location. Then, it would bring back the martial artist's godstone. These 4 people were the 4 gods who controlled everything in the eye of the storm. The situation in the eye of the storm was dictated by them. 2 of them were the gods of the races on the ground, and the other 2 were the gods of the endless races. There were 2 gods on each side to ensure that everything in the eye of the storm would not be out of balance. It was also to keep each other in check. A message rang on a small screen. It was a request made by an emperor. He wanted to order a defensive true treasure. The gods of the endless races accepted the request and traded a defensive true treasure that could resist wind and thunder. Soon, they received 20,000 godstones. Ha ha ha. Another deal. I already have a lot of godstones. When this eye of the storm is over, I believe that I can reach the peak now and enter the next stage. On the side of the ground, a scholarly god looked unhappy. Moses, your behavior of selling defensive true treasures in large quantities is too shameless. These martial artists have the ability to go to the valley of wind and thunder after obtaining the defensive true treasures. You clearly want to see Lin Jun enter the valley of wind and thunder to collect the godstones. You just don't want him to have an easy time. This is a trick. Hee hee, Jinling, you can't say that. We have a prior agreement that anything can be sold in the eye of the storm. These low-grade, defensive, true treasures, more or less, are there any problems with us selling them? Why are you saying that we are targeting Lin Jun? The things in the eye of the storm belong to those who are virtuous. They don't belong to Lin Jun alone. Another ghost god chimed in. That's right, Jinling, I know that you are from the Fallen Star Lake Holy Land. You are the third senior brother of the Fallen Star Lake. It is understandable that you favor your junior brother Lin Jun. However, we did not violate the rules. Everyone did not interfere with anything in the eye of the storm. Everything is going according to its natural course. Your statement is a bit far-fetched. The scholar named Jean Ling snorted. The situation in the eye of the storm is very unfavorable to us. We have far fewer people than the endless races. I didn't do anything. It wasn't easy for Lin Jun to turn the situation around. You guys are targeting him like this. Let's not beat around the bush. Do you dare to say that you are not targeting him? Moses laughed and said, but so what? We did not violate the rules. If Lin Jun has the ability, he can also take away all the treasures in the Wind and Thunder Valley. He even ordered the beast god's blood. Only I have it. If he can get 55,000 godstones, I can also sell it to him. We are not targeting him. Jean Ling wanted to say something, but another god of the surface race spoke up. Forget it, Jean Ling. Although they are a bit despicable, it is still within the scope of the rules. We did not expect that someone like Lin Jun would appear. Jean Ling looked at the god of the same race. Guanshan, what do you think of Lin Jun? Guanshan thought for a moment. Genius. He is definitely a genius. I have been in the soul-locking altar Holy Land for so many years, but I have never seen a martial artist with such potential. In my opinion, if nothing unexpected happens, Lin Jun will inherit the Fallen Star Lake Holy Land. At that time, Jean Nual will be released. Jean Ling nodded. I think so too, which is why I am more concerned. If he can get a big harvest in the Wind and Thunder Valley, his future will be limitless. Unfortunately, Jean Ling glared at the two gods of the endless races and said, I hope he can pass this test. Don't worry too much. Geniuses will always grow through countless setbacks and failures. At worst, when the eye of the storm is over, you can help your junior apprentice brother. Jean Ling did not say anything. Although Guanshan was also from the surface race, the four holy lands were competing with each other. He did not want to see the Fallen Star Lake dominate. Lin Jun's matter still depended on himself. Would he be able to reap any benefits under such circumstances? Jean Ling was not optimistic. Many people entered the Wind and Thunder Valley. Lin Jun's situation was not good. Kacha! A winding golden snake descended from the sky and struck a demon martial artist who entered the Wind and Thunder Valley. This martial artist was flying at high speed. His body paused and was struck down from the sky by the lightning. The rainbow-like armor on his body dimmed a little. Behind him, a demon monarch walked over. Young man, the defensive supreme treasure can only help you stay alive in the Wind Thunder Valley, but it can't allow you to move forward without fear. The faster you fly, the faster you will die. You should just walk on the ground or fly close to the ground at a very low altitude. You should be fine if your speed is less than 10 times the speed of sound. Iron Thread King, I also want to hurry on my way. What's the use of going faster? Can you find the location of the treasure? If you want to reach the location of the gods, you will need at least a few years. Iron Wire King, although we can't reach the god's remnant star for the time being, there are still relics left behind by other experts along the way. It's fine if we can find others. I can feel the aura of divine stones leaking out in the vicinity. There should be a great treasure. In order to raise money to buy defensive artifacts, I owe many friends a debt of divine stones. That's true. I also owe more than 9,000 godstones. The godstones here should be concentrated. If I can get a share, I might be able to pay it off. Let's go. I feel it's right in front. Those who entered the Wind and Thunder Valley all had some treasure hunting skills. At least, they could sense the aura of the godstones. Because Lin Jun had broken through the underground of the Amstel planet, the aura of the godstones leaked out and attracted many people. The first martial artist to arrive was the Hall of the Exalted, Laughing Over All Life. As soon as Laughing Over All Life arrived, he saw the other martial artists. 3 emperors from the endless races came together. Laughing Over All Life's expression turned ugly. Although he was in the Hall of the Exalted, the 3 emperors were not easy to deal with. If the 2 sides fought now, it would be a lose-lose battle. When the 3 emperors saw Laughing Over All Life, their expressions changed. The 2 sides were similar in strength. No one dared to make a move, but no one wanted to give up. The 2 sides stared at each other for a while and quickly came to an agreement. The treasure belonged to whoever got it. Before that, they would try to avoid fighting. Chapter 932. When Laughing at All Life and the others entered the cave, they immediately saw the huge god stone in the distance. Laughing at All Life squinted his eyes. Anyone who saw this god stone would be tempted. He was also in the Hall of the Exalted and had a god stone in his body. However, his god stone in its complete state was barely comparable to this broken god stone. This meant that the original owner of this god stone was stronger than Laughing at All Life. Ignoring the 3 regal emperors around him, Laughing at All Life dashed towards the god stone. The 3 regal emperors were not to be outdone. In the face of such wealth, they would even dare to fight against the Hall of the Exalted. They immediately followed and rushed towards the god stone. Just as they entered the 100-meter range, they screamed and fell on the spot. What a strong spiritual attack. My head, who is it? Fortunately, these people were all elites, and their spiritual power was at the heavenly green level. They did not die after taking such a hit. Instead, they struggled to get up but did not dare to rush forward again. Soon, they all received answers from their artificial intelligence life, forms regarding the remnant souls. Laughing at All Life's face was gloomy, and the veins on his forehead were still throbbing in pain. However, his gaze fell on a figure in the distance. Who was that? Lin Jun. A few of the emperors of the endless races quickly discovered Lin Jun's tracks. Lin Jun was sitting 30 meters away from the god stone, meditating. Damn it, why is this guy here? After the battle with Heartless Monarch and Crimson Lotus Monarch, Lin Jun went missing. How'd he get here? We were the first to exchange for defensive treasures. Looks like he's been here for a while. He's so close to the god stone. The regal emperors rolled their eyes and wanted to attack Lin Jun. Laughing at All Life, you're in the Hall of the Exalted, but you can't rule the world. If we attack Lin Jun, can you not interfere? Then we can compete fairly and decide who gets the godstone. Laughing at All Life sneered. Lin Jun and I still have a grudge. Do as you please. With Laughing Over All Life's words, an emperor made his move. A flying sword was like a rainbow piercing through the sun, bringing with it a bolt of lightning. Unfortunately, the sword light only flew a few meters and fell to the ground due to the inertia of the attack. The emperor clutched his head and fell to the ground, rolling around in pain as his eyes rolled back. Mother of Asterisk Kerr, the mental attack is here again. Laughing Over All Life was stunned for a moment. Then, he came to a realization and said, this is someone else's inner world. If you act rashly, the remnant soul will become vigilant. Thinking that you are a threat, it will naturally attack you. The other 2 emperors also understood and heaved a sigh of relief. Being together with a Hall of Famer like Laughing Over All Life put a lot of pressure on the crowned emperors. Now that they couldn't do anything, it was much easier. They didn't have to worry about being killed at any time. As for Lin Jun, the few of them did not care too much about him. What was there to care about someone who had fled after being chased by the Heartless King, the Azura King, and the others? Red Lotus Emperor died at Lin Jun's hands because of his own carelessness. These emperors definitely wouldn't admit that Lin Jun had the power to fight them. Since that's the case, then it's simple. This huge godstone, let's see who can take it first. Although Lin Jun is a bit ahead, if we work hard, we should be able to catch up. That's right. Then let's not do anything. Let's go over there. The three emperors went in another direction and sat down to recover their mental power. They were ready to charge into the next 10 meters. Laughing over all life also found a place to sit down. Since there were no gods on this planet, the Hall of Famer's inheritance was in high demand. The huge god stone shone brightly, attracting everyone's attention. This place was like a tree ring with the god stone at the center. Lin Jun was near the center, while laughing over all life and the three emperors were at the outermost layer. 5 minutes later, laughing over all life stood up and stepped into the 90-80 meter range. After being hit by the mental attack, he didn't fall. Instead, he wobbled and slowly sat down. When Lin Jun saw this scene from afar, he could not help but be speechless. Just this alone was enough to prove laughing over all life's power. One must know that Lin Jun was knocked down by the mental attack when he went from 90-80 meter range. However, Lin Jun wasn't worried. He was now in the 40-30 th range. He wasn't worried about being caught. He was going to take the god stone. Soon, the two emperors passed the 90 meter range and entered the 90-80 meter range. Only the emperor who acted rashly had a slower recovery speed and hadn't passed this stage yet. At this moment, footsteps could be heard from outside. More warriors were arriving. Some demigods even came to the Valley of Wind and Thunder after obtaining the defensive treasures. Seeing this, these warriors didn't panic or leave. Instead, they all sat down and started competing with Lin Jun and the others. It wasn't just this place. Hundreds of warriors had entered the Valley of Wind and Thunder. These warriors all displayed their abilities and found several treasures. The situation was similar in every place. Everyone had to go through the mental attack of the guardian remnant soul to pass. Everywhere was filled with intense competition. It wasn't a battle, but it was more like a battle. This was a contest of mind power, willpower, endurance, and perseverance. The winner would be rewarded handsomely. Dozens of people had already gathered in the cave where Lin Jun was. Some of them saw the situation and chose to leave. Lin Jun was too close to the godstone. They couldn't see any hope and chose to go somewhere else. There were also many warriors who couldn't bear to part with the huge godstone and chose to stay. Everyone don't leave. This godstone is the core of the world. It can't be taken away all at once. It's also extremely hard and hard to damage. It takes time for anyone to take it. We might be able to make it in time. Under the encouragement of some people, many warriors stayed and continued to compete. On the 15th day, Lin Jun stood up again. Behind him, the other warriors were already very close. Laughing at all life was already between 50 and 40 meters away from him. A few emperors were also close to 50 meters away. In everyone's eyes, Lin Jun's first place was no longer guaranteed. Lin Jun stood up and took a few steps forward. When he crossed the 20-meter line, a mental attack hit him. Lin Jun's body shook and fell. After a while, he got up and crossed the 20-meter line and continued to rest. In half a month, Lin Jun had only advanced 10 meters. Laughing over all life had advanced 70 meters. Laughing over all life was 3 steps away from the finish line, while Lin Jun was 1 step away. It seemed like they would catch up soon. However, Lin Jun wasn't worried at all. It was normal to be fast in the beginning. It was only the last few steps that were harder to advance. The last part of the journey was 90 meters. This was the most profound example. On the 23rd day, laughing over all life was 30 to 20 meters away. On the 29th day, laughing over all life once again forced his way in. This time, he was only 10 meters away, the same as Lin Jun. Those emperors from the endless races also forced their way in, keeping pace with Lin Jun. Resisting mental attacks wasn't necessarily faster than other warriors just because you were in the Hall of the Exalted. This wasn't a competition of astral power. There were many factors involved. It was possible for a Hall of the Exalted to lose to a Godstone stage. However, none of this affected Lin Jun's progress. On the last month, Lin Jun stood up and took the last step. A powerful mental attack was released, causing the air to vibrate. It was like a ripple that hit Lin Jun's spiritual sea. Lin Jun's spiritual sea was almost shattered by this attack. However, it didn't scatter in the end. Not only did it not scatter, but his spiritual sea was tempered by this attack and officially reached 50% azure. After lying on the ground for an hour, Lin Jun got up and stumbled to the divine stone. He reached out and touched the cold surface of the divine stone. This divine stone was the core of the world and was closely connected to the inner world. He couldn't take it all at once. He spat out a long sword aura from his palm and slashed at the divine stone. Kacha! Lin Jun directly cut off a large piece of divine stone made of hundreds of divine stones. With one slash, all the divine stones were shining brightly. It was like a large piece of caviar. The feeling was incomparable. With a lift of his hand, Lin Jun directly took the divine stone. The sword aura danced again, and the second attack was released. Another large piece of divine stone fell into his hands. Seeing that Lin Jun was already taking the divine stone, someone finally couldn't hold back anymore. The first endless race emperor to enter the remnant souls area forced his way through again. He wasn't fully prepared and crossed the 10-meter line from 20 meters away. He immediately attracted the remnant souls attack. As long as the world didn't collapse, the remnant souls attack was invincible. With one attack, this emperor was actually killed on the spot and fell within the 10-meter area. His head exploded. Humans die for wealth and birds die for food. Even martial artists and emperors were the same. Faced with a large amount of divine stones and other people crazily taking them, he couldn't help but do something beyond his strength. He couldn't resist the mental attack and died. The other two emperors of the endless races looked sorrowful. Brother, after I adjust and cross the 10-meter line, I'll go collect your corpse and let you rest in peace. Laughing over all life scoffed at the two emperors' words. You're already dead. You're probably more worried about your companion's divine stone. If it wasn't for the 10-meter line, you would have broken into his inner world and taken the divine stone. If too much time passed, this emperor's inner world would collapse, and there wouldn't be a single divine stone left. But who would have thought that Lin Jun, who was also within the 10-meter line, would actually make a move on this dead emperor? Lin Jun's clone directly entered his inner world. He was going to make a fortune from the dead. Chapter 9:33. Not only these two titled emperors, but all the other races were furious as well. Lin Jun, what are you doing? Damn it. You dare to attack a dead person. Lin Jun, do you still have any humanity? F***CK. Lin Jun, don't fall into my hands, or I'll teach you a lesson. These races threatened Lin Jun, but Lin Jun didn't care at all. The nearest person was 10 meters away, and no one could attack or move forward. If words could scare Lin Jun wouldn't be able to survive. He sneered at the races. You speak as if you can be my friend if I don't touch this dead king. Stop talking nonsense. I'll take this. Whoever isn't afraid of death, come. The clone entered the dead king's internal world, which was collapsing. As soon as his doppelganger entered, he immediately took out the Huayun heavenly dual swords and slashed them fiercely. Before his internal world collapsed, he had obtained a whopping 6,500 godstones. There were about 2,000 godstones left, but Lin Jun didn't have time to collect them. Once the internal world collapsed, it would dissipate into the void. Lin Jun couldn't leave his clone here. After breaking out of the internal world, Lin Jun's main body started to attack. The swords in his hands continued to cut, and large pieces of godstones were collected. In the face of such a situation, everyone, including laughing at all life, stopped cultivating and regulated their breathing. It was useless. Lin Jun was too far ahead. Perhaps they shouldn't have chosen to stay here in the first place. They had wasted a month. The martial artists of the surface races were still fine, but some of the martial artists of the endless races were looking at Lin Jun with hatred. It was as though they were waiting for this matter to end before they were ready to attack Lin Jun and take advantage of him. But Lin Jun wasn't worried at all. Before the internal world collapsed, The remnant souls were protecting it, so no one could attack. When the internal world collapsed, everyone had to escape. Otherwise, they would die together with the internal world. When there were only about 2,000 godstones left, the internal world was about to collapse. Run. There's no fun to watch. Damn it. This time around, it's Lin Jun. But Lin Jun, remember this. You insulted the king warriors of our endless races. We'll settle this score sooner or later. Lin Jun, do your best. Don't listen to the threats of these trash. We support you. Retreat, retreat. The martial artists left in all directions, leaving the internal world that was about to dissipate. Lin Jun was the last to leave, because he saw a dark gold item at the top of the godstones. At the last moment, Lin Jun retreated and released a gravitational force, grabbing the dark gold item in his hand. As the final item was in his hand, the internal world began to explode. With the remnant divine stone as the epicenter, the explosion spread out in all directions. Lin Jun hurriedly retreated. Just as the explosion was about to reach him, he finally rushed out of the inner world. PFFF, like a bubble bursting in front of him. Lin Jun left the internal world and couldn't feel the power of the explosion. After leaving, Lin Jun didn't stop. He turned into armor again and waved his huge claws. Like a pangolin, he quickly broke through the earth's core and fled. Some of the people who wanted to stay in the vicinity to ambush Lin Jun were disappointed. Lin Jun's movements were too fast. They couldn't catch up at all. Helpless, they could only leave resentfully and search for the next treasure location. On the small planet above the eye of the storm, in the four-cornered palace, the god of the endless races, Moses, had an ugly expression as he looked at Jin Ling. Jin Ling, is this how the elite geniuses of the surface races act? Someone just fell, and he immediately collected the god stones in the internal world in front of everyone. How ruthless and shameless. Jin Ling didn't back down either. You can't say that. I really admire Lin Jun's way of doing things. Indecisiveness will only lead to trouble. Anyway, we're all enemies. It's normal to kill each other, let alone collect god stones. Moses coldly snorted. But don't be too proud. Lin Jun shouldn't have the ability to buy the beast god blood. This time, he had the advantage of making the first move. Otherwise, who knows who the god stones would belong to? He won't be so lucky next time. Moses, you don't have to worry about that. I believe that my junior brother has overcome all obstacles to reach this place. His luck won't be worse than anyone else's. I will keep an eye on you. Although you are the only one who has the beast god's blood, you have already bid 55,000. This time, you're not allowed to raise the price, otherwise it will be a violation of the rules. Moses closed his eyes and gritted his teeth. I won't raise the price on this. Jin Ling, don't measure the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Jin Ling smiled and didn't say much. This kind of argument didn't have much meaning. He believed that Lin Jun would continue to work hard. He was going to inherit the Fallen Star Lake Sacred Land. Could he not pass through the eye of the storm? Underground, Lin Jun quickly traveled and gradually left the planet. There was another emperor's ruin nearby, but Lin Jun didn't go there. Many people must have gone there already. He wouldn't be able to get anything if he went there. With so many people in the Wind and Thunder Valley, Lin Jun couldn't take all the godstones by himself. He could only try his best. He arrived at a barren planet. It was relatively safe here. At this point, Lin Jun stopped and began to take stock of his gains. Before this operation, Lin Jun had 19,000 godstones in his possession. There was a dead emperor beside him. Lin Jun took the godstones in his body. There were about 6,500 godstones. Lin Jun obtained 11,500 godstones from this hall of the Exalted Powerhouse's relic. Now, the total number of divine stones in Lin Jun's possession was about 37,000. I'm still lacking a bit. The beast god's blood requires 55,000 divine stones, so I'm still short of 18,000. I still need some more divine stones. As he spoke, Lin Jun picked up the dark gold item in his hand. It was a dark gold ball the size of a watermelon. It was slightly elastic. Lin Jun's pupils dilated the moment the item entered his hand. This is a soft, godly weapon. Lin Jun was too familiar with soft godly weapons. It was like his light fiend. It could change shape at will. The quality of light fiend was too low. It wasn't suitable for Lin Jun. At least it wouldn't be of any help in battle. And this soft, godly weapon was actually a supreme treasure. Although it was only a low-grade supreme treasure, its practical value was definitely comparable to a high-grade supreme treasure. Whether it was attack, defense, or support, it had an effect that ordinary supreme treasures couldn't compare to. Lin Jun's heart was filled with ecstasy. As expected of a hall of the exalted powerhouse, the weapons he used were extraordinary. The fact that he placed this soft god weapon together with the godstone showed how much he valued the soft god weapon. Previously, Lin Jun didn't have time to take anything from the inner world of the Emperor of the Endless Races. He only took the godstones and ran out. He felt a little regretful. Now that he saw this soft, godly weapon, Lin Jun's regret was long gone. If this thing were to be sold, it would be worth at least 100 or 80,000 divine stones. Those low-grade supreme treasures are worth tens of thousands, let alone this soft, godly weapon that is better than a high-grade supreme treasure. Lin Jun took the dark gold ball. With a thought, he injected his mind power and quickly controlled this supreme treasure. Whoosh! The soft, godly weapon turned into a long spear. It shook a few times, and its power was no less than the purple gold spear. It turned into 2 long swords, then an armor, and then a shield. Lin Jun drove it with his mind power and changed the shape of the soft, godly weapon at will. After playing with it for a while, Lin Jun raised his hand, and the soft, godly weapon turned into a spiritual snake. It gently wrapped around Lin Jun's waist and turned into a dark gold belt. What a familiar feeling. It's like I'm back on Earth. Next, I can't waste any time and continue to collect godstones. But this time, I don't have the advantage of going first. I can only fight with my real strength. The treasure-hunting vine in his hand waved a few times, and Lin Jun locked on to another direction. Rushing out from the ground, Lin Jun returned to the surface of the Valley of Wind and Thunder. The 9 Heavens Hurricane attacked again, but it didn't have much effect on Lin Jun, who had turned into armor. After about 7 or 8 days, Lin Jun arrived at the king-ranked ruins. When he arrived, there were already 3 people here. 2 were from the endless races, and 1 was from the ground race. There was a king-ranked demigod among the endless races, and the other 2 were just ordinary demigods. And this time, the one in the lead wasn't the king-ranked demigod, but the ordinary demigod of the ground race. Currently, he was between 50 and 40 meters. After calculating the distance and time, Lin Jun felt that he could still fight for it. He took a deep breath and stepped into the 100-meter range. A mental attack came, but it didn't have much effect on Lin Jun. He could enter the 90-meter range very quickly. The few of them looked at Lin Jun, and their expressions changed slightly. Now, Lin Jun's name was very famous in the eye of the storm. At this time, no one could give in. They were all competitors, and everyone was racing against time. 5 days, 10 days, half a month, 20 days, 25 days later, Lin Jun was the first to cross the 10-meter line and arrived in front of the Godstone. Sword energy appeared in his hand again. Lin Jun turned around and smiled at the 3 opponents between the 20-meter and 10-meter lines. Sorry, 3 of you, I'm going to make my move. Ka ka ka. Streaks of sword light flashed as Lin Jun began his bold and decisive harvesting. In just a short while, Lin Jun had harvested 8,000 godstones and successfully left before the world collapsed. The faces of the other competitors turned ashen, but they could only leave dejectedly. They hoped that they would be able to discover the next location of the buried treasure earlier and gain the upper hand. Competition was so cruel. If you lost, not a single hair was left. Chapter 9:34. There weren't many ruins in the Wind and Thunder Valley. After Lin Jun took down 2 ruins, he couldn't find the next one. Chris, are there so few ruins here? Of course. I found the locations of 4 ruins. Master chose the Hall of the Exalted Ruins first, then went to the Emperor Ruins. It's already a blessing to be able to get 2 in a row. During this time, almost all the nearby ruins have been explored. Then the rewards here aren't that great. Master, you're too greedy. Have you forgotten how you found the Godstones before you had the treasure hunting tongue? One or two every day, sometimes not even one. It was only after you obtained the treasure hunting vine that your searching speed increased. But at that time, you would only find a few hundred at most. When have you ever found tens of thousands of them in a day? Lin Jun was a little embarrassed. He was indeed a little greedy. It was mainly because he was in a hurry to get the beast god's blood. The 55,000 godstones were too important. He didn't feel it when the gap was huge, but now that it was only 10,000 godstones, Lin Jun was indeed eager to reach this goal. Chris gave Lin Jun another idea. Master, you have two choices now. The first is to wander around the Wind and Thunder Valley and look for the ruins at the edge to collect godstones. Lin Jun thought for a moment. There seems to be a drawback. That's right. The drawback is that you'll miss the opportunity to go to the god ruins. Now, many people have sped up and given up on the scattered rewards around, hoping to get the biggest reward in the god ruins. This is the second choice I want to talk to you about. Lin Jun was silent for a moment. This way, I won't get anything on the way. Yes, both choices have their pros and cons. It's up to you to choose. Lin Jun thought for a moment and finally made up his mind. Go to the god ruins. If I stay on the way, I can get 10,000 godstones, but I can't accept missing the god ruins. Master, you've made the right choice. I believe you'll be able to reap great rewards from the god's ruins. Lin Jun nodded. Since you decided, show me the way. Don't go to any other ruins on the way. Go straight to the ruins of the gods. Even if I can't get the upper hand, at least I can't fall too far behind. Chris quickly gave Lin Jun directions. After transforming into his armor, Lin Jun tapped the ground with his feet, causing a rumbling sound. Like a missile flying across the continent, he headed straight for the god's ruins. Most of the warriors made the same choice as Lin Jun. They gave up some small profits and fought to make a fortune in the god's ruins. Whether it was the title of king or the Hall of the Exalted, how could they be compared to the gods? However, there were also some people who made different choices. They had an accurate assessment of their own strength. They knew that even if they went to the god's ruins, they would not be able to compete with others. It was better to stay in the periphery and fight steadily. If they could find an ordinary ruin alone, it would be a great profit. Of course, those who could enter the Valley of Wind and Thunder had paid a lot of godstones to buy defensive treasures. Many of them were still confident in their own strength. From all directions of the Valley of Wind and Thunder, nearly 1,000 people went deep into the core. They were racing against time. Everyone hoped to get the upper hand. Just like that, the days passed day by day. During this period, Lin Jun was also very bored. While his main body was rushing with all his might, he was also condensing the stars in the black hole. His clone was comprehending the limitless sword skill. In the Valley of Wind and Thunder, everyone's speed was about the same. It was destined that there would not be a big gap between them. In the blink of an eye, another year had passed. Asterisk, 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 asterisk at the core of the Valley of Wind and Thunder was a huge planet called Gemini. It could be said that these were two planets, but they were connected. 15 million years ago, the two gods of the surface race and the endless race had a duel. They brought the two largest planets in the eye of the storm. They controlled the planets to fight, and it was earth-shattering. The planets collided with each other. They did not shatter. Instead, they were embedded with each other, forming an unprecedented double planet. Two huge planets that were already dead formed a wonder in the universe. The Nine Heavens hurricane and thunderstorm were even more rampant here. This was the core of the storm. Everyone hoped to be the first to arrive here and be the first to collect the gods' relics. However, no one expected that the first person to arrive at the Valley of Wind and Thunder would be the reporter Wen Tao. As a reporter of the Dimensional Universe Corporation, Wen Tao had a very keen sense of smell. When the exchange panel showed that he could exchange for defensive treasures, Wen Tao immediately applied for one from the company. With the support of the Dimensional Universe Corporation, the first person to obtain the treasure was not laughing over all life or blood shadow. It was him, the reporter. After obtaining the defensive treasure, Wen Tao immediately went to the Valley of Wind and Thunder. With the protection of the treasure, he was not afraid of the wind and thunder here. He did not collect the godstones along the way. Instead, he went straight to the core of the Valley of Wind and Thunder, which was also the Gemini star. Wen Tao believed that if there was any big news in the eye of the storm, the Gemini star would definitely be the place where it was born. He understood these ambitious martial artists all too well. If there was such a place, martial artists would not give up. He even believed that Lin Jun would definitely come here. Usually, he could not catch Lin Jun's shadow, so he simply came here to wait. A genius like Lin Jun would come sooner or later. Although he was not strong and his realm was not high, he rushed without any distractions. His speed was faster than anyone else, and he was the first to arrive at the Gemini star. After arriving here, Wen Tao's shutter flashed and took pictures of the scenery. Wow, this is really a shocking place. There are actually two connected planets in the world. They are inlaid with each other and are difficult to separate. If I did not see it with my own eyes, I would not have believed such a thing. After tidying up his appearance, Wen Tao looked at the camera and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wen Tao's program. I think no one has seen this place before because no one came here when the Eye of the Storm opened for the first 2 times. Perhaps someone came here but died. This is the core of the Eye of the Storm, the Wind and Thunder Gemini star. It is the final place where the 2 gods perish together. This is the first time the Dimensional Universe Corporation has taken pictures of this place. The camera swept across, and the audience saw the real core of the storm. As far as I know, many martial artists have exchanged for defensive treasures and are advancing here while braving the endless wind and thunder of the Eye of the Storm. According to my calculations, in about 7 days, a large number of martial artists will arrive. I hope to meet Lin Jun here. At present, there are many stories about Lin Jun in the Eye of the Storm. For more details, you can check my account. My account is XXXXX. There's one more thing. I want to make a statement on behalf of the Dimensional Universe Corporation. This time, the filming of the Wind and Thunder Gemini star was done by the company. I will report it with a professional attitude. Therefore, whether it is the surface races or the endless races, they are not allowed to attack me. Otherwise, the company will take strict measures. Such a statement was very useful. At this time, if anyone still dared to touch Wen Tao, it would be equivalent to declaring war on the Dimensional Universe Corporation. Moreover, there was no point in killing Wen Tao at this time. He believed that the people of the endless races would not do such a stupid thing. Many people in the Wind and Thunder Valley saw Wen Tao's report, but did not pay much attention to it. Fame, exposure, these things were not as practical as a pile of godstones. Since he represented the Dimensional Universe Corporation, he could film as much as he wanted. There was no need to make enemies for an insignificant person. Wen Tao began to work on the Wind and Thunder Gemini star and prepared for the filming. Filming for 2 stars was not a small amount of work. Soon, a week passed, and Wen Tao finally welcomed the first batch of warriors. The first to arrive at the Wind and Thunder Gemini star was not one person, but a group of people. 7 demigods of the surface races, 12 demigods of the endless races, and 7 or 8 king-ranked experts. These are not the most eye-catching. The most eye-catching ones were the 2 Hall of the Exalted, Laughing Over All Life and Blood Shadow. Laughing Over All Life was wearing a rainbow armor, and Blood Shadow was wearing a sky blue armor. They appeared in the sky above the Gemini star almost at the same time. These 2 Hall of the Exalted came from afar and wanted to seize the opportunity. However, they did not expect to think of the same thing and arrive at the Gemini star together. Seeing the arrival of the Hall of the Exalted, the other warriors immediately became alert. They all came to the side of the Hall of the Exalted of their own race in case a fight suddenly broke out. Laughing Over All Life squinted at Blood Shadow, his heart filled with hatred, but he knew that now was not the best time to make a move. The battle between the Hall of the Exalted was not ordinary. He and Blood Shadow were old acquaintances, and their strength was similar. If he rashly made a move, it would only benefit others. Blood Shadow, what do you think? Laughing Over All Life went straight to the point. He believed that Blood Shadow's thoughts were similar to his. Blood Shadow shook his blood-red cape. Laughing Over Life, we all came to the Eye of the Storm in search of wealth. I would love to kill you with my own hands, but now is not the best time. I'm sure you understand that. Laughing over all life, snorted coldly. It's good that you think this way. I don't have to waste my breath. Let's go our separate ways and talk about the future. As he spoke, laughing over all life pointed at the wind and thunder Gemini star. I thought that a fight would be inevitable here, but look, there are actually two stars here. Each star is a god's tomb. This way, you and I won't have to fight. Let's each choose one. Bloodshadow thought for a moment. You and I will choose the tomb of the god of our endless race, the thunder god. Okay, then I'll choose the tomb of the god of our land race, the wind god. Good, let's mind our own business. That's right. The two of them said one sentence, then separated to the left and right, each going to a star. The other warriors did not have to follow their choice. They each chose the star they wanted to go to. With the two Hall of the Exalted taking the lead, everyone had a tacit understanding at this time. First, collect the treasure, then fight. Chapter 9:35. On the wind and thunder Gemini stars. One was the burial place of the wind god of the ground race, and the other was the place where the thunder god of the endless race had fallen. When Lin Jun arrived, the passage to the core had been completely opened, and many martial artists had already entered the inner worlds of the two gods. Phew, I'm finally here, but it seems that I'm a little late. Master, I've already introduced the situation of these two stars to you, and you've also seen them in the dimensional universe. Have you decided where to go? Lin Jun smiled. Is it possible to go to both? Chris kicked her chubby legs. Master, you better not be so greedy. It's already a blessing to be able to gain something on a certain planet. All right. I've already made my choice. There are many martial artists from the ground race on the wind god's side. I'll inevitably be scolded if I compete. I might as well go to the thunder god star with the most endless races. With that, Lin Jun flew through the astral wind and headed straight for the thunder god star. When he landed on the thunder god star, the thunderstorms from the nine heavens became denser. Without any defensive true treasures, the thunderbolts struck down with a rumble. Some of them struck Lin Jun's body, causing streaks of blue light to appear. Lin Jun raised one hand and tried his best to block the lightning so that it would not hit the top of his head. Hiss! I can feel the aura of the divine thunder of destruction in these lightning bolts. Fortunately, it's not the divine thunder of destruction. Otherwise, no matter who it is, I'm afraid they won't be able to survive in this dense lightning. Without stopping, Lin Jun burrowed into the ground and drilled in like cutting tofu. After advancing underground for a while, Lin Jun found a path that had been opened up by someone. He immediately followed it to the core of the earth. A ripple flashed in front of him, emitting a faint green light. Lin Jun knew that this was the edge of the endless race's thunder god's inner world. Just as he was about to enter, Lin Jun suddenly stopped. Chris, I have a feeling that I might stay in this place for a long time. Master, martial artists often have sharp senses. If you really have this feeling, then it's best to be fully prepared. Lin Jun nodded. I'm ready. With that, Lin Jun broke through the ripples in front of him and entered this world. Bam! A powerful mental impact directly hit Lin Jun, causing his mind to spin. Everything in front of him was pitch black, and the darkness seemed to be endless. His consciousness even began to blur. At this moment, Lin Jun was touched by death. This is divine might and destiny. Lin Jun clenched his teeth and bit the tip of his tongue, causing blood to gush out. The salty taste of blood kept him awake. The veins on Lin Jun's forehead bulged like earthworms. Even though Lin Jun was prepared for this, the Godzilla was still too much for him to handle. Vaguely, Lin Jun felt that there were many people around him. They were filled with malice, as if they were waiting for something. I can't die. This level of pain is nothing to me. Lin Jun mobilized his mental power to dispel the pain. Waves of pain were endured by Lin Jun, and during this process, the other auras around him gradually disappeared. After about an hour, Lin Jun recovered a little and slowly opened his eyes. The strange scene in front of him made Lin Jun temporarily forget the pain. This was the strangest inner world Lin Jun had ever seen. Under Lin Jun's feet, there was no soil, no trees, and no steel. This was a void, and under his feet were circles of light. The void had no end, but people could stay on the circles of light. In the middle of the void, there was a terrifyingly huge divine stone. From afar, there were at least 100,000 units of divine stone. It was far from an ordinary king-ranked or hall of the exalted. The divine stone was the center of the circle of light, and the 10 circles of light spread out. This was similar to the other ruins. If there was a difference, it would be that above each circle of light, there was a layer of canopy light cover. The dark void was like a dense dark cloud with lightning hidden within. Lin Jun lowered his head. He had not even entered the outermost circle of light. He was standing outside the circle of light. Around him, there were many scattered figures in the distance. Some were like him and did not enter the outermost circle of light. Some were between 190 meters, and some were between 90 and 80 meters. There was a person in a blood-red robe who was between 70 and 60 meters. He was the person closest to the divine stone. Lin Jun's immortal spirit body was constantly recovering, and his headache had disappeared. Just as he was about to enter the outermost circle of light, someone suddenly called out to him. Lin Jun slowed down. Lin Jun looked back and saw that it was a demigod expert from a ground race. Lin Jun did not know this demigod, but the demigod obviously knew him. He said, "Lin Jun, don't be reckless. Those who are reckless are already dead." Lin Jun sensed the situation around him and said doubtfully, "There's a divine will here. Warriors can't fight with each other. It shouldn't be as dangerous as you said, right? You must think that entering this circle of light is a divine will, right? It's like a mental attack, isn't it?" The demigod from the ground race smiled bitterly. "Don't worry. Look at the other situations. You'll know soon." At this moment, a demigod from an endless race not far away seemed to be ready. He got up, high-fived his friends, and was about to enter the first circle of light. Seeing that he was about to enter, the people who were originally between the 100-meter line and the 90-meter line suddenly moved and approached the position he was about to enter. Their eyes were emitting a cold light, making Lin Jun feel that these guys were very scary. After the demigod from the endless race greeted his friends, he took a deep breath and firmly stepped into the 100-meter circle of light. After entering the 100-meter circle of light, the sky above seemed to suddenly come alive. Dark clouds rolled, and a thunderbolt fell from the sky. Gotcha! The huge flash made Lin Jun feel that everything in front of him was white. The demigod had no room to dodge at all. He used his star power to resist. After a loud bang, the demigod survived. Lin Jun frowned slightly. So, it's a lightning protection, but it doesn't seem to be the kind that is difficult to resist. This time, before the demigod could explain, the next scene made Lin Jun completely shocked. Bolts of lightning struck down one after another. A second bolt, a third bolt, a fourth bolt, and each one was more powerful than the last. This demigod seemed to have made sufficient preparations, but when the sixth thunderbolt came down, his whole body was still turned into charcoal. When the demigod died, several martial artists who had been prepared for a long time swarmed up and broke into his inner world. In the blink of an eye, they ran out again. Everyone had a smile on their faces. It seemed that they had a good harvest. Lin Jun was stunned for a moment. These people, were they already prepared to snatch his godstone? The demigod from the ground race smiled bitterly and nodded. Yes, look at these people. They are like vultures fighting for carrion, hovering around you and waiting. They don't pass the 90-meter line and just wander around this area. Once someone fails to pass the tribulation, they will immediately be divided. It's not just them. Those who are hovering between the 90-meter line and the 80-meter line are also waiting for their arrival. If they fail to pass the 80-meter line, what awaits them is the same fate of being divided. Speaking of this, the demigod looked at Lin Jun. Actually, when you came in, it was the same. We were also waiting to divide you, but your spiritual power and willpower are very strong. You made it through smoothly. When we saw that there was no hope, we dispersed. Lin Jun took a deep breath. He had done this before. It was not cruel, but it was human nature. Since he dared to come here, he had to be mentally prepared to die. If you died, you would be completely turned into ashes. No one would bury you in peace. Not even a hair would be left. The demigod from the ground race looked at Lin Jun. Now you know why I didn't let you pass immediately. It's not easy to pass through this circle of light. If you fail, you'll end up like this. Lin Jun's expression was a little serious. How long have you been here? Half a month. Then why didn't you go? Or do you think it's very difficult? Why didn't you leave? The demigod shook his head. Who would be willing to leave so easily? Look at the huge parangons over there. I have never seen so many parangons. And there seems to be something else over there. It should be something left behind by the gods. If you get something, you will have endless benefits in this life. If there is a glimmer of hope, no one will leave. Then have you seen the lightning? What is it like? The demigod pointed. After entering here, everyone will have to welcome the divine might will. Those who are alive will continue, and those who are dead will have nothing. After that, you'll have to break through the lightning layer. This is the thunder god's inner world. It is the origin of the lightning in the eye of the storm. Every time you enter a circle, you'll be bombarded by more powerful lightning. This 100-meter circle has 9 bolts of lightning. If you make it through, you will be safe between the 100-meter circle and the 90-meter circle. Lin Jun suddenly asked, "Can I go back after entering?" No, there is no turning back. Once you enter, you can only go forward. So if you want to enter, you must be sure that you are ready. Otherwise, you will regret it. The demigod paused for a moment. Continue forward. Between 90 to 80 meters, there are 16 bolts of lightning. They are obviously stronger than the first circle. It will not be easy to make it through. Then between 80 to 70, 25, 70, and 60, there are 36 bolts of lightning. As for what will happen after that, I don't know because no one has reached that step. Chapter 9:36. Upon hearing the demigod's advice, Lin Jun patted him on the shoulder. Thank you for your advice. If not for you, I might have been a little reckless. When the demigod saw Lin Jun pat him on the shoulder, he actually looked a little agitated. Lin Jun, you might not believe me, but although I am already over 70,000 years old, the person I admire the most is you. I feel that you will definitely become the most powerful warrior. Haha, that may not be so. Warriors have always put their lives on the line. No one can guarantee that they will live past tomorrow. That's true, but I still think highly of you. As the demigod spoke, he tugged at Lin Jun and said, Since you won't enter the 100-meter circle of light for the time being, why don't you have a chat with me first? I know 2 friends from the endless race here. We can't fight now and can only talk. We can't always be at loggerheads. After interacting with them, I feel that the endless race isn't all bad. Lin Jun didn't immediately go over to the demigod. Instead, he asked, What's your name? I'm Alonso from Fuguang City. Oh, Alonso, I will remember your name. With that, Lin Jun turned around and directly stepped into the 100-meter circle of light. The thunder and lightning in the sky rumbled down, and Alonso was dumbfounded. He didn't expect Lin Jun to be so decisive. Even after he had completely explained the dangers of entering the circle of light to him, he still went in without hesitation. He couldn't understand. Wouldn't it be safer and more stable to listen and see outside and understand more? Why did he have to go in and risk his life? Alonso couldn't understand because he wasn't Lin Jun. The yearning in their hearts was completely different. In Alonso's heart, he wanted to live a safe life until the day he could refine a divine crystal and become a god. That was his life's pursuit and yearning. But in Lin Jun's heart, he had never considered refining divine crystals to become a god. He was a man who wanted to reach the pinnacle. So how could he stop here? It was indeed safe to stay in the periphery and collect the corpses for the god stone, but that was definitely not suitable for Lin Jun. Right now, time was money and time was life. The person in the blood-red robe at the very front had already passed the 70-meter circle of light. How could he just stand there and watch? Lin Jun wanted to catch up. He wanted to be first. He wanted to maximize his benefits. This was what he wanted. How could a sparrow or swallow know the ambition of a swan? Although it wasn't good to say this to Alonso, Lin Jun thought so in his heart. As for making friends with the endless races, it was meaningless to Lin Jun. He only had one friend in the endless races, and that was the little fox. There was no need for anyone else, and no one was qualified for him to take the initiative to befriend them. Lin Jun had already planned to choose the lightning planet. When he saw the lightning, Lin Jun had a plan in mind. A bold and crazy plan. The owner of this planet was the god of thunder. He had controlled lightning all his life and had cultivated the power of lightning to the extreme. However, lightning was the most difficult to control. Lin Jun had mastered all the elements. Among them, he had practiced fire, light, water, earth, metal, and wind very well. However, his control of lightning was very ordinary. Lightning was a kind of energy, a domineering, powerful, and incomparable power. This could be seen from Lin Jun's three-god of destruction thunder. If it were anyone else, they would definitely try to resist it. However, Lin Jun was different. He wanted to devour the lightning. Lightning was almost impossible to capture in other places, but Lin Jun had a black hole that could devour everything. Therefore, he wanted to give it a try. After entering the first circle of light, those who had been watching from the inside immediately surrounded him. These people's eyes were glowing green, like a pack of hungry wolves. It's Lin Jun. He hasn't reached the Godstone realm. He won't have any Godstones in his body. What do you know? This guy can't be judged with common sense. He had a good harvest in the Valley of Wind and Thunder. He must have something good on him. This time I might be rich. I think so too. He's a super genius from the surface race. I really don't like him if he's only at the divine will stage. Lin Jun completely ignored these people and stepped into the circle of light. Lightning immediately fell from the sky. A bright, white lightning appeared in front of him in an instant. At the same time, Lin Jun completed his black hole beast transformation. In this area, Lin Jun's black hole beast was very small. However, the black hole wasn't small. A huge whirlpool appeared and opened its mouth to the lightning. Rumble. The lightning here wasn't ordinary lightning. Every bolt contained great power. Even in the face of the black hole's devouring, their power wouldn't be reduced. The first bolt of lightning fell into Lin Jun's black hole. As the lightning flashed, Lin Jun's body trembled. Everything within the black hole's vision couldn't escape. The black hole devoured the lightning, but at the same time, Lin Jun suffered a heavy blow. After all, the power of the lightning still had to be withstood by his body. The wild mane on his head danced as he circulated his mental power. The first bolt of lightning was nothing. Kacha, kacha, kacha. The second and third bolts. Bolts of lightning fell one after another. No wonder Alonso said that this was a heavenly tribulation. The thunder and lightning here was just like a martial artist tribulation. Every thunderbolt was capable of destroying mountains and rivers. If a martial artist was struck by such thunder and lightning, then they would be turned into ashes if they were careless. Sizzle, 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 sizzle. Bolts of lightning flowed on Lin Jun's scales. The surrounding people were like leopards ready to pounce. They arched their backs and stared at Lin Jun. Once Lin Jun fell, they would immediately rush over. Lin Jun's huge mouth kept opening and closing. These lightning bolts were really nothing to him. After all, Lin Jun's body also had strong lightning elements. He had also resonated with the atomic power of lightning before, even if it was just ordinary lightning. With these foundations, Lin Jun had a strong immunity to lightning elements. Although this lightning was stronger, it couldn't knock him down at all. If he couldn't even survive the first round, Lin Jun wouldn't have to think about fighting for the Godstone. The only thing that made Lin Jun difficult was that he didn't have to withstand it. Instead, he had to devour it. This was very difficult, so he looked more miserable than the others. The seventh bolt, the eighth bolt, the ninth bolt. When a bright lightning bolt fell from the sky and entered Lin Jun's black hole, the rolling dark clouds gradually calmed down. Lin Jun's black hole beast now looked like an afro. The mane on its head was all standing up in a radial pattern. It looked like a funny hedgehog. However, the surrounding people couldn't laugh. One of the martial artists was so excited that he couldn't control his body. He staggered forward 2 steps. The lightning above determined that he was going to attack. A series of 9 bolts of lightning directly struck him. This martial artist wasn't prepared. He originally wanted to rob Lin Jun. If Lin Jun died, then there was nothing to say. However, Lin Jun was still alive. His actions became an attack. The others were ready to give up at this moment. They weren't prepared either. The original hunter suddenly became the prey, and the prey became the hunter. Lin Jun had just devoured the 9 bolts of lightning. Although his body was extremely uncomfortable, he still had the ability to enter his inner world to snatch things. The 5th bolt of lightning struck down and turned this unprepared demigod of the endless races into charcoal. Lin Jun, who was beside him, was the most direct beneficiary. His body flashed into Lin Jun's inner world. He came to the side of the God Stone and waved his sword energy with both hands. Large pieces of God Stone fell into Lin Jun's hands. The others weren't slow either. However, by the time they arrived, half of the God Stone here had already fallen into Lin Jun's hands. The remaining people rushed forward and divided all the God Stones. Lin Jun retreated after completing his task. When he returned outside, the lightning power on Lin Jun's body still hadn't dissipated. He lay there on his back, panting heavily. "Chris, how is it?" "Congratulations, Master. You've obtained 4,000 God Stones this time. It's almost half of this warrior's God Stones. The others added together can't even get 4,000. Lin Jun's lips curled into a smile. 4,000. That means I'm only 6,000 away from 55,000 God Stones. Yes, Master. Do your best. I have faith in you. Nonsense. If I don't even have faith in my own master, who else can I have faith in? Lin Jun and Chris bickered for a while. Then he slowly propped himself up and sat up. The 9 bolts of lightning entered the black hole and circled inside like the god's thunder of destruction. Lin Jun controlled the power of the black hole to not assimilate them. The 3 bolts of God's thunder of destruction were like 3 huge snakes. They seemed to want to devour the lightning that had just been absorbed. Lin Jun thought about it and didn't do so. The God's thunder of destruction wanted to replenish its energy and grow stronger. However, Lin Jun didn't want to let them grow. There would still be lightning power. He wanted to take the initiative to control the God's thunder of destruction and see if it could evolve. Retracting his power of will from the black hole, Lin Jun opened his eyes and looked around. In this circle, most of the people were demigods. There were even a few God Stone martial artists who were more talented. Those who had reached the level of emperor were no longer in this circle. Facing Lin Jun's cold gaze, the demigod's stone martial artist smiled and stepped back. The dead Lin Jun wasn't scary, but the living Lin Jun wasn't easy to deal with. Seeing the commotion Lin Jun had caused after entering the eye of the storm, even a fool knew that his future was limitless. Even Red Lotus Emperor, a veteran emperor, had died at the hands of Lin Jun. Normal demigods wouldn't have the guts to go against Lin Jun. Lin Jun, everyone is like this. It'd be a waste if we don't fight for it. We're not targeting you. Yes. We're from the surface race. You don't want to see your things fall into the hands of the endless races, do you? The surface race explained to Lin Jun, while the endless races walked away. Chapter 9:37. Lin Jun wasn't bragging. After resting for half an hour, Lin Jun felt that he had recovered and entered the 90-meter circle. When he was within the 90-meter circle, the lightning in the sky struck again. The 16 bolts of lightning were split into 4 waves, each stronger than the last. Lin Jun, who had a certain level of lightning resistance, thought that he could easily pass the first 2 or even the first 3 rounds. However, he realized that he was wrong. A 90-meter lightning bolt was twice as strong as a 100-meter one. The huge impact almost caused Lin Jun to vomit blood. By the time he withstood 16 bolts of lightning, his body was already twitching from the impact, especially when Lin Jun wanted to use the black hole to swallow the lightning and ensure that the black hole didn't dissipate. This was even more difficult. Lin Jun had to endure more than the other warriors. Looks like I was blindly optimistic. Even if I have resistance to thunder and lightning, even if I have the immortal spirit body, devouring thunder and lightning is not a simple matter. Others can pass as long as they endure it, but I'm different. This requires a lot of endurance and tenacity. Compared to others, I have no advantage at all. Lin Jun sat up. There were a few demigods and emperors beside him. Seeing that Lin Jun had woken up, they turned and left. At this stage, the people in front of him were basically all emperors. Lin Jun knew that compared to these people, his stellar power wasn't outstanding. Lin Jun's rich battle techniques were useless against these lightning bolts. Moreover, the devoured lightning in Lin Jun's dantian was not easy to digest. The first circle only had 9 lightning bolts, and they were not very strong. The second circle had 16 lightning bolts, and their power had doubled. Especially when Lin Jun controlled the black hole to not assimilate the lightning bolts. These lightning bolts were as uncomfortable as if they had eaten something that they could not digest. Looking at the demigods and emperors around him and his injured body, Lin Jun knew that his thoughts of advancing quickly had failed. Every time I advance, I have to digest the lightning in my body so that it won't cause trouble. Otherwise, the lightning in my body will resonate with the lightning in the outside world. It's time for me to slowly cultivate my 3 destructive, godly thunders. These heavenly thunders are great supplements. Rumble. Violent thunderbolts struck down once again, and a demigod expert who had just barged in was turned into charcoal. The warriors around rushed up. This time, Lin Jun didn't fight for it because his body hadn't recovered yet. Even if he did, he wouldn't be able to get anything. Lin Jun closed his eyes and rested without looking at the harvest of the people around him. Hee, let me see who this guy is. Isn't this the arrogant kid from the surface race, Lin Jun? Why aren't you moving forward? A voice sounded. Lin Jun opened his eyes and saw that in front of him, between 80 to 70 years old, a tall, endless race emperor was looking back. Shura King. Lin Jun hadn't seen Shura King since the battle at the planet graveyard. He didn't expect to meet him here. Lin Jun snorted. Don't worry, it won't be long before I surpass you. Shameless boasting. You have no idea how much effort is needed to advance. With your strength, you'll never surpass me. Lin Jun said in disdain, wait and see. When I surpass you, don't embarrass yourself too much. Shura King glared at Lin Jun. No need to talk big. When this ends, it'll be your death date. Shura King stopped bickering with Lin Jun and turned to continue cultivating. At this moment, there was an uproar in the crowd. Someone went to the 70-meter circle. So strong. Previously, only Blood Shadow entered 70 to 60 meters. This is the second one. I wonder if he can pass the lightning punishment here. Who is this guy? Is it Heartless King? It's him. People say that Heartless King's strength is close to the Hall of the Exalted. I didn't believe it before, but now it seems that the rumors are true. Lin Jun raised his head and watched the man in white walk into the 70-meter circle against the rumbling lightning. 36 lightning bolts came down one after another. Even though he was 20 meters away, Lin Jun could still feel the great power. It was a power that he definitely couldn't resist at the moment. Heartless King's astral power surged as he forcefully resisted the lightning chain until it ended. When the last lightning disappeared, Heartless King, who had been knocked down, sat up with his arms supporting him. His white clothes had turned black, but he was still alive. The endless race hall of the exalted warrior Blood Shadow frowned as he looked at Heartless King. He didn't expect someone to be able to keep up with him. Blood Shadow, don't think that the title of the Hall of the Exalted represents everything. You just entered the Hall of the Exalted because of a good opportunity. If I had the same opportunity, I could do it too. Blood Shadow glared at Heartless King. Kid, don't think that you are qualified to compete with me just because you can temporarily keep up with me. You will never know how strong a Hall of the Exalted powerhouse is. Heartless King snorted. I don't need to know. I only know that if I defeat you, I will be in the Hall of the Exalted. After this is over, I will challenge you. Get ready. Blood Shadow was secretly shocked by the surging astral power in his body. Heartless King's strength was actually very close to his. In a battle between powerhouses, a small difference in astral power was not the key to victory. Heartless King was already qualified to challenge him based on the astral power level alone. Blood Shadow was shocked. He didn't expect another powerhouse comparable to the Hall of the Exalted to appear after the laughing overall. Ew. Your strength has improved again." Heartless King sneered and glanced at Lin Jun behind him. During the battle with Lin Jun, Heartless King had almost killed Lin Jun with a sword. That sword had also vented a lot of resentment in his heart, allowing his state of mind to improve and make another breakthrough. The current Heartless King was much stronger than when he fought with Lin Jun. Lin Jun also saw Heartless King's disdainful and murderous gaze. He knew that the two of them would have to settle this in the end. Slowly closing his eyes, Lin Jun didn't think about these things. What he needed to do now was to cultivate and calm the thunder power in his body before preparing for the next round. In Thunder God's Star, it began to enter a relatively stable period. Every warrior was racing against time to cultivate and try their best to be at the front. In the beginning, many people made a wrong judgment of their own strength and forced themselves to move forward. In the end, they all ended up in ashes. As time passed, the warriors became smarter and didn't rush to move forward. Instead, they waited until they were fully confident before moving. At this time, another shocking news came. The four gods who ruled the Eye of the Storm Galaxy announced a piece of news. In the end, there could be 4 people participating in the fight for each god's treasure. On each of the 4 edges of the huge god stone, there was a seat within a 10-meter circle. As long as the 4 seats were filled, the god stone could be collected. Before this, there was a layer of protective film on the god stone. No one could collect even a little bit of it. As soon as this news came out, it immediately caused an uproar among the warriors. In the fight for the god stone, every warrior had no confidence in their hearts. They were very worried. They were worried that after cultivating for so many years, they would still be one step behind and be robbed by others. Now that there were 4 seats, the chances of competition were much greater. If the 4 seats were not full and the Godstone could not be opened, then as long as they entered the top 4 of the competition, it would be fine. This news was like a shot of adrenaline, piercing into the nervous hearts of the cultivators, allowing them to muster up the courage to begin another round of cultivation frenzy. One Tao, a reporter from the Dimensional Universe, also issued the latest report on the situation here. Ladies and gentlemen, the situation in the Eye of the Storm has entered a critical stage. It is now the 7th year since the Eye of the Storm opened. Many masters who came to the Eye of the Storm have gathered in the Valley of Wind and Thunder to begin the final battle. The treasures of the 2 gods are there. Now I have filmed the arrival of many masters. Thunder God Star can be said to be full of masters. Ruthless King challenged Blood Shadow, a master of the Hall of the Exalted. Currently, the 2 of them are in the lead. After them, we can see many other king-level masters, such as Shura King. And Lin Jun, who I have been paying attention to, has now entered the position between 90 and 80 meters. I will continue to pay attention to him and see how far he can go in the end. Who can win in the fight for the treasure? Who are the top 4 of each planet? When the battle for the Gemini Star's treasure is over, there will be a battle between the surface races and the endless races. One Tao will continue to bring you the situation here. Time slowly flowed by. Half a month after Lin Jun came here, he crossed the 80-meter line and swallowed 25 bolts of divine thunder. 2 months later, he crossed the 70-meter line and swallowed 36 bolts of divine thunder, reaching the position of Blood Shadow. But at this time, the first group had formed, including Blood Shadow, Ruthless King, Shura King, and 5 other king-level masters. It was related to the fight for the treasures of the gods. All the warriors began to compete desperately. In the past, some people did not show their strength, but now they burst out one after another. It was too much for the eyes to take in. There were so many hidden masters. The 8 masters of the first group had now entered the 50-meter line. When they entered the 60-meter line, there were 49 bolts of divine thunder. When they entered the 50-meter line, there were 64 bolts of divine thunder. Moreover, the power of each bolt of divine thunder almost doubled. Half a year later, Lin Jun crossed the 60-meter line, and the first group was still at the 50-meter line. A year later, when Lin Jun reached the 50-meter line, the first group had already crossed the 40-meter line. There were 81 bolts of divine thunder in the 40-meter line, and the power of the thunderstorm was earth-shattering. In this process, another 2 king-level masters were eliminated, and the first group was only left with 6 people. Although Lin Jun was at the 50-meter line, he was not anxious at all. The fight for the treasures of the gods was not a 100-meter race, but a marathon. Lin Jun had enough patience to walk to the end. Moreover, his main focus was on suppressing the thunderstorm in his body. 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64. Chapter 9, 38. This energy was destructive. If he didn't use the power of the black hole to absorb it, it could explode within his body at any time, killing Lin Jun. The 3 destructive thunder drooled over this thunderstorm every day. If they swallowed this thunderstorm, the 3 destructive thunder would definitely grow stronger. But Lin Jun couldn't bear to do so. He could sense that there was only one chance for such a thing, and the divine thunder of destruction only had one chance to evolve. He had to maximize his benefits. Every day, besides slowing down time and injecting energy into the star, Lin Jun spent all his energy suppressing the thunderstorm. Every day, he would suppress it a little until the thunderstorm was completely quiet. This process had already been repeated 6 times. Every step forward was a cycle. It wasn't until the 2nd year after arriving at the Thunder God Star that Lin Jun finally managed to suppress the thunderstorm. It's about time. I can go forward again and enter the 40-meter circle. Lin Jun stood up and walked into the range of 40 to 30 meters. A total of 81 lightning bolts came crashing down. 81 bolts of thunder came crashing down. Lin Jun transformed into the black hole beast and swallowed the thunder once more. At this time, the first group of people turned their heads to look at Lin Jun. Every time Lin Jun passed, he would swallow the thunder. This caused the other martial artists to be envious. Others improved their ability to adapt to the thunder. As for Lin Jun, he digested the thunder and swallowed it. Although there was a process, the difference was like heaven and earth. This fellow swallowed so much thunder and lightning. Isn't he afraid of losing all his hair? Young people always like to be in the limelight. I know you're a rare black hole beast, but there's no need to show off like this. Once this matter is over, we'll definitely teach him a lesson. The first group had already entered the 30-meter circle. There were 108 bolts of thunder and lightning here. And this time, the gap between the Heartless King and Blood Shadow had shrunk to less than 3 days. The Heartless King had even greater potential. Now it could be seen, besides the 2 of them, there was also the Azura King and 2 other titled kings. The first group had a total of 5 people. It was very likely that the top 4 would come from these 5 people. After 81 bolts of heavenly lightning, Lin Jun lay motionless on the ground. However, he was clearly still alive. This made the people beside him, who were waiting to collect his corpse, feel a wave of disappointment. After entering the 40-meter range, Lin Jun could be considered to have stabilized in the second group. Of the 30 people in the second group, only a dozen or so were left. The rest had all turned into ashes in the process of advancing. However, it was a pity that Lin Jun did not obtain any more Godstones during this period of time. The number of Godstones remained at 49,000. There was no one around. Lin Jun's fingers twitched. His body was completely paralyzed, and his internal organs, muscles, and other tissues were almost completely dead. If it weren't for his immortal spirit body being strong enough, this thunder-swallowing process would have killed Lin Jun countless times over. However, compared to the pain in his body, the thunderstorm in his body was even more unbearable. After crossing the 40-meter range, Lin Jun was still unwilling to give up. He had already seen 108 lightning bolts in a 30-meter range. Lin Jun did not want to leave any regrets. He wanted to take another step forward. Therefore, even though the lightning ball in his body had grown bigger, he was still unable to digest it. Therefore, he could only suppress it. He used his star power to continuously suppress this thunderstorm. Silver, white, blue. Dazzling lightning bolts jumped around in his dantian, ready to burst out with earth-shattering power at any time. Lin Jun felt that his star power was somewhat lacking. Even with 5 billion star power, There were signs that he could not suppress the lightning bolts. No, I must not give up. If I can't suppress it for a day, then I'll suppress it for 10 days. If I can't suppress it for 10 days, then I'll suppress it for a year. If I can't suppress it for a year, then I'll suppress it for 3 years. As long as those people in front of me are not close to the Godstones, I can't give up. Lin Jun desperately mobilized the qi in his dantian. After walking around the gates of hell several times, he finally made it through this first wave. Great. After this wave, there won't be any problems. Next, it's just a matter of time. As long as I suppress it bit by bit, there will be a day when the thunderstorm will subside. Under the effect of the immortal spirit body, Lin Jun's body gradually recovered. He sat up again and began a new round of cultivation. During this period, Lin Jun did not even have time to cultivate time deceleration. The effect of time deceleration had been stuck at 8 times. There were fewer and fewer people in Thunder God Star. Hundreds of people came in, but now there were less than 100 people left. The rest of them had fallen forever. Time passed slowly for the 3rd year. In the past year or so, Lin Jun had once again made a breakthrough. He had broken through the 30-meter circle of light, and, after risking his life, he had successfully absorbed 108 bolts of lightning. And the first group finally pulled ahead in the fierce competition. Blood Shadow, Heartless King, Azura King, and a person called Iron Wire King had already broken through the 20-meter range. Within the 20-meter range, there were a total of 200 lightning bolts. The remaining Endless Race Emperor, called Qin Jiang King, was temporarily pulled back a little. He was currently the same as Lin Jun, between 30 and 20 meters. There were only 5 people in this position, and Lin Jun was considered to be one of the faster ones. If nothing went wrong, Qin Jiang would be the first to break through and return to the first group. At this point, the competition of Thunder God's Star was gradually becoming clearer. If nothing went wrong, Blood Shadow and the other 3 would be the top 4 of Thunder God's Star. Qin Jiang King still had a chance as long as he could catch up in a short time. And the others, including Lin Jun, didn't have much of a chance. Victory was right in front of them. Due to their anxiety, some people lost their composure and charged forward again without caring about anything else. 200 lightning bolts came down and left a charred corpse, benefiting Blood Shadow and the other 2. With one less person, the second group, including Lin Jun, only had 4 people left. And the other 2 emperors saw this and sighed and stopped cultivating. Forget it. I know it's impossible, but I still do it. I'll give up. I also give up. It's impossible for the 4 people in front of us to catch up. My mentality is already unstable. If I force myself to continue, I'm afraid it'll backfire, and I'll end up like this old man. Yeah, I'm not bad among the emperors. I'll have a chance to refine God crystals and enter the God state. I won't fight for these things. The 2 emperors chose to give up at the same time and started chatting with each other. They were extremely relaxed. After the 2 of them left, the second group was left with Lin Jun and Qin Jiang King. Qin Jiang King looked at Lin Jun. You're still not giving up? Lin Jun was dazed. Why should I give up? Hee. Lin Jun, there are some things that you shouldn't hold on to unnecessarily. That only means that you're stupid. You definitely won't have a place in the top 4. I still have 3 days before I can advance again and return to the first group. I believe that my chances are still very high, but you... King Qin Jiang looked at Lin Jun from head to toe. I'm afraid you can't swallow the lightning anymore. Although I don't know why you're doing this, you really don't have a chance. Unless you can surpass me in 3 days and enter the 20-meter circle. But you just entered the 30-meter circle. Can you do it? Lin Jun knew that this was King Qin Jiang's psychological tactic. For spots, other than the 4 in front, only Lin Jun and Qin Jiang King were left. It was certain that the top 4 would be born from the 6 of them. If Lin Jun chose to give up, Qin Jiang King would have 1 less competitor. Of course, Lin Jun wouldn't fall into his trap. However, Qin Jiang King was right about one thing. Lin Jun really couldn't swallow the first 200 lightning bolts. At least, he didn't have a chance to do so in a short period of time. If I can enter the 20-meter circle now, I might have a chance. Unfortunately, I'm still 1 step away. Qin Jiang King only has 3 days to go. I can't fall behind him. Otherwise, I really won't have a chance. Lin Jun thought for a while and finally made up his mind. It was almost the critical moment. The trick he had prepared a long time ago could be put to use. He looked at Qin Jiang King. You only have 3 days to go? That's right, Qin Jiang King said proudly. Very good. However, it's a pity that you still have to be behind me. What did you say? Qin Jiang King was stunned. Lin Jun didn't answer him. Instead, he stood up and stepped into the 20-meter circle. What? Qin Jiang King, Blood Shadow, and the other three all widened their eyes at the same time. Is Lin Jun crazy? He just crossed the 30-meter circle, and now he's going to challenge the 20-meter circle? Is he tired of living? Blood Shadow and the others even stopped cultivating. They were waiting for Lin Jun to be killed by the lightning bolts so that they could collect his corpse. Lin Jun stood in place and turned into the black hole beast to take the 200 lightning bolts head-on. The thunderstorm ball in his body was on the verge of exploding under the influence of the new lightning bolts. Lin Jun used all his astral power to suppress the thunderstorm ball. He was only relying on the black hole beast's instinct to swallow the lightning bolts. Under such circumstances, Lin Jun naturally couldn't withstand the continuous bombardment of 200 lightning bolts. After enduring 120 lightning bolts, Lin Jun's life force was about to disappear. He's going to die. Get ready. Blood Shadow and the others were ready. They were waiting for Lin Jun to be completely turned into charcoal. Just as Lin Jun was about to die, a powerful life force suddenly rose from his body. This powerful life force quickly recovered everything about Lin Jun. His body, his astral power, everything was instantly restored to the peak. How is this possible? What is this? It can actually revive someone who is about to die. What is going on? Heartless King squeezed out a few words. 9 transformations, golden pill. And it's been improved. Heartless King was right. This was the 9 transformations golden pill that Lin Jun had improved using the heavenly spirit fruit and the previous pill formula. It could revive the dead and instantly restore their strength. This was a unique pill in the world. Currently, only Lin Jun had it. Chapter 9:39. Even in his dreams, King Qin Jiang never thought that Lin Jun would actually be able to enter the 20-meter line before him. Seeing that there were already 5 people in front of him, wouldn't that mean that he had no fate with the top 4? King Qin Jiang instantly lost his mind and actually crossed the 20-meter line without being fully prepared. Out of the 200 consecutive divine lightning bolts, King Qin Jiang endured until the 199th one. This divine lightning bolt completely killed him. He was only 1 step away, but he didn't succeed. As soon as King Qin Jiang died, Lin Jun and the other 4 immediately entered his inner world. The 5 of them took almost all of King Qin Jiang's godstones and treasures in an instant. Not only did King Qin Jiang have his own godstones, but he had also snatched a lot of other people's godstones. Now, Lin Jun had obtained 4,000 godstones this time. I now have 53,000 divine stones. There's still a gap of 2,000. Lin Jun's mood was slightly agitated. This time, he used the 9 Revolutions Heavenly Spirit Gold Pill to successfully break through. Now, he only had these 4 opponents. However, after using the 9 Revolutions Heavenly Spirit Gold Pill this time, he couldn't use it a second time. Because this was the inner world, it was not connected to the outside world. There was a limit to the medicinal properties. If the medicinal properties were not expelled from the body, new medicinal properties could not enter. Lin Jun could only take a breath before he could take the pill again. Therefore, before he left this place, the golden pill could no longer be used. Next was the real competition of patience and perseverance. From this position, he could already see the huge divine stone very clearly. The divine stone was suspended in the air. There was no light circle below, only an endless void. There was a position in the east, west, north, and south directions. It was like a suspended seat. Only at that position could the divine stone be collected. There was a thin layer of light outside the divine stone. Only when the light layer dissipated could the divine stone be collected. Lin Jun glanced at the seat, then closed his eyes and began to cultivate. At this time, Lin Jun stood out from the second group and successfully entered the first group. The other people in the second group had all been wiped out. Other than the 5 of them, the closest person was 40 meters away. There was no hope at all. After Lin Jun succeeded, the outer rings of light began to disappear one by one. In the end, only the 20-meter and 10-meter halos remained. Lin Jun and the others were in between these 2 halos. The disappearance of the other halos meant that the other martial artists were free. They could choose to leave. With no hope left, these warriors chose to leave. Instead of staying here and watching others put away their treasures, they might as well go out and look for more divine stones. It would be good if they could get a few more. In any case, the situation here could be observed through the dimensional universe. What happened next was very boring. The 5 of them cultivated on their own, and no one made a sound. Lin Jun began his new cultivation, suppressing the thunderstorm in his body with all his might. This mission was definitely not easy. After swallowing 200 bolts of divine lightning, the thunderstorm in his body had increased by a large amount. Traces of electricity were exploding everywhere. Lin Jun was very worried that if he opened his mouth, lightning would overflow from inside. He was tortured by the thunderstorm every day. Compared to the thunderstorm, suppressing the devouring desire of the 3 bolts of divine lightning was even more difficult. This feeling was like a person who was about to die of thirst in the desert. There was a puddle of clear water in front of him, but he was not allowed to drink. It was not that he was not allowed to drink temporarily, but he was not allowed to drink for a very long time. This feeling was definitely not something that ordinary people could endure. As for the 10-meter halos in front of him, Lin Jun knew that no matter how hard he tried, he would not be able to break through. Unless he could break through to the divine realm now, it was absolutely impossible. Hence, Lin Jun simply did not think about it for now. He believed that the heavens would help the worthy. As long as he had enough patience, perhaps others would make mistakes. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed. At this time, the Eye of the Storm had been open for 11 years. A piece of news came. On the Wind God star, Laughing Over All Life had already taken the first spot. When this news came out, on the Thunder God side, Blood Shadow could no longer sit still. They were both members of the Hall of the Exalted. Blood Shadow believed that he would not lose to Laughing Over All Life. In fact, he was even more powerful. Now that he was in front of Laughing Over All Life, how could he be satisfied? Blood Shadow stood up and was about to enter the 10-meter halos. However, before he could enter, Heartless King had already rushed over. After passing through the 10-meter halos, the rolling divine lightning struck down. In the last 10 meters, the number of divine lightning bolts had reached 360. Facing the divine lightning bolts that came crashing down, Heartless King waved the ice sword in his hand to block them. He used all his strength to resist. When the lightning bolts were over, he was almost killed. However, he did not die in the end. The first person to successfully break through the 10-meter halos in the Thunder God star was Heartless King. After Heartless King passed, he immediately took a spot. Seeing that Heartless King had passed, Blood Shadow's face turned cold. He immediately followed. After the violent divine lightning struck, this supermaster of the Hall of the Exalted was almost killed. However, he did not die. From this point of view, Blood Shadow and Heartless King's strength were similar. It was difficult to distinguish who was stronger. Blood Shadow also took a spot. There were only 2 spots left. The third person to rush out was Azura King. He was once the number 1 person in the planet cemetery. His strength seemed to have improved recently. However, it was still difficult for him to resist 360 divine lightning bolts. Just as he was about to be killed by the divine lightning bolts, Azura King swallowed an unknown pill. His condition quickly recovered. With the power of the pill, Azura King also crossed this level and successfully took the 3rd spot. As a result, there was only 1 spot left. Now, there were 2 people who had not passed the 10-meter line. They were Lin Jun and Iron Wire King. Iron Wire King was a lean man from the demonic ape clan of the Endless Races. Lin Jun, 2 years ago, you used a pill to cross the 20-meter line. However, you can't take a second pill here. Now, you can't cross the 10-meter line. Lin Jun glanced at Iron Wire King from the corner of his eyes. You know that I can't cross it? Of course. Iron Wire King said confidently. I wonder if you'll panic now that I've crossed the 10-meter line? Ha ha ha. Lin Jun, you little brat, don't exaggerate here. I believe you won't dare. Then you can wait here. After saying that, Lin Jun suddenly jumped up and went straight for the 10-meter line. Iron Wire King's face suddenly changed. Looking at Lin Jun's momentum, it was impossible for Lin Jun to stop in time. This meant that Lin Jun was really going to rush over. At this moment, Iron Wire King almost instinctively chased after Lin Jun. No matter what, the last spot could not fall into Lin Jun's hands. This was the most basic bottom line. His strength was similar to Azura King. If Azura King could cross, then he had no reason not to. He, Iron Wire King, also had a life-saving pill. With only 10 meters left, Iron Wire King was incomparably anxious. He hoped to overtake Lin Jun. Otherwise, if Lin Jun crossed first, he might not have a chance. Then, something strange happened. Iron Wire King saw that Lin Jun's movements seemed to have slowed down. At the last meter, Iron Wire King actually overtook him. As he passed by Lin Jun, he felt a strange time force field. The flow of time around Lin Jun was wrong. Iron Wire King knew that he had been tricked. Lin Jun had deliberately rushed out as fast as he could. It turned out that he could use time to slow down his speed. If not, Iron Wire King would not have been fooled and would have instinctively followed. But it was too late to stop now. Iron Wire King could only rush to the 10-meter line. Rolling heavenly thunder came crashing down like a doomsday storm, enveloping Iron Wire King. Lin Jun stopped at the edge of the 10-meter line. He was less than a millimeter away from crossing. Looking at Iron Wire King, who was completely enveloped by lightning, Lin Jun sighed inwardly. If it weren't for time deceleration, he would not have been able to hide his charge from Iron Wire King. At the last position, he had bet that Iron Wire King would not give up no matter what. Things had happened so suddenly that he would definitely chase after him with all his strength. But he did not expect that Lin Jun would stop at the last moment. Lin Jun had bet that Iron Wire King's plan would be disrupted and his condition would be affected. He would not be able to survive the final lightning tribulation. After a few seconds, the situation was clear. Iron Wire King had swallowed a pill to save his life. But after being affected by Lin Jun, his aura was a bit chaotic. He was actually just one breath away from dying under the bombardment of the 358 heavenly thunder. His body turned into charcoal. He was actually blasted out of the 10-meter line and fell back to the 20-meter line. That was because besides a few seats, everything else was empty. Anyone who failed to enter the 10-meter line would be sent back to the 20-meter line. This greatly disappointed Blood Shadow and the other two who had planned to snatch the corpse. But now that they had each occupied a seat, it was impossible for them to retreat. Lin Jun was immediately overjoyed. He jumped over and directly entered Iron Wire King's inner world. This was Lin Jun's biggest gain from entering the Eye of the Storm. The Iron Wire King's own divine stones and the divine stones he had stolen added up to a total of 15,000. In addition, there was also a defensive Supreme Treasure armor and a low-grade Supreme Treasure longsword. After collecting these items, Lin Jun left Iron Wire King's inner world. Within the 10-meter line, Heartless King coldly looked at Lin Jun. Lin Jun, don't think that you could do anything just because you have these divine stones. I just asked the gods. If no one can reach the 4th seat within a day, then the god's relic will be taken by the 3 of us. There will be no need for a 4th person. Blood Shadow coldly said, if you don't have the strength to cross the 10-meter line, then you might as well get lost. Trying to stall for time won't work. Azura King laughed strangely. Little brat, if I were you, I would choose to run away right now. Because after we finish collecting the divine stones, we will come back to take your life. Lin Jun looked at the 3 of them. Then I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. Since there is still a day, then I will definitely be able to cross. Chapter 940. Lin Jun now had more than 60,000 divine stones, enough for him to exchange for the beast god's blood. Lin Jun opened the exchange panel and sent a request. "Ha ha, Moses! How is it? Lin Jun has exchanged for the beast god's blood. You have nothing to say this time, right? Hurry up and exchange. Lin Jun has broken through to the divine realm. He will definitely cross the 10-meter line." Jin Ling smiled. His junior brother from the Fallen Star Lake was really hardworking. With his strength at the peak of the divine realm, he actually made it all the way here. Jin Ling was looking forward to seeing how strong his junior brother would become after breaking through to the divine realm. Moses' expression was extremely ugly. He had set a high price for the beast god's blood because he didn't want Lin Jun to succeed. Who would have thought that Lin Jun would succeed? And at such a crucial moment. He didn't want Lin Jun to succeed, but with Jin Ling and another god on the ground watching, Moses had no choice but to fulfill his promise. Moses rolled his eyes and smiled. "Jin Ling, you don't have to say that. I won't go back on my word for the beast god's blood. He just needs to take it. I hope he can get good results later." Moses took out a bottle of beast god's blood from his inner world. Jin Ling looked at it and asked, "What kind of blood is this?" "Of course, it's the blood of an astral beast after it became a god. It's also the blood of a super astral beast, Lightning Qilin. When Lin Jun placed the order with me, he said he wanted Qilin blood. I didn't lie at all. You can check it if you don't believe me. No need. Hurry up and exchange." Jin Ling saw clearly that Moses didn't cheat. Moreover, Jin Ling believed that even if Moses did cheat, Lin Jun would be able to see through it. After all, Lin Jun was a saint-level alchemist. He wasn't afraid of Moses cheating. Moses clicked on the exchange button, and the exchange was successful. The energy angel took the beast god's blood and disappeared into the void. Soon, it appeared on the screen in exchange for 55,000 divine stones with Lin Jun. After receiving the divine stones, Moses closed his eyes and stopped talking. He seemed to be in a bad mood. Of course, Jin Ling and the others didn't say anything. They just looked at the screen quietly. Now, Wind God Star had 3 people ready, and the last one was about to be born. Thunder God Star was waiting for Lin Jun. Moses gritted his teeth in his heart. "Lin Jun, oh Lin Jun, since I asked you to exchange for beast god blood, I'll give you Qilin beast god blood, but this Qilin is lightning. Although your black hole beast is also a type of Qilin, and this pill is more compatible with you. You definitely don't know that when you try to absorb the lightning that you devoured, the lightning in your body will react with the lightning that you devoured. It's enough to turn you into ashes. Do you think you can know everything just because you're a saint-grade alchemist? You will definitely not know about this matter. You will definitely fall into a trap because your experience and knowledge will never be able to compare with the gods. This isn't a saint-godly item that can help you advance. It's a poison that will take your life. Asterisk, 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 after obtaining the beast god blood, Lin Jun opened the lid to take a look. A fragrant smell assailed his nostrils. This blood made Lin Jun excited. It's actually the best lightning Qilin blood. This is great. The quality of this blood is very high. Together with my pill formula, the pill that can be refined to advance to the god realm will definitely have an extraordinary effect. This time, I might be able to refine the best pills. After sitting cross-legged, Lin Jun first took out the pill furnace. The initial stage of refining pills in the god realm required a pill furnace, followed by Lin Jun's mental cultivation. Heavenly spirit fruit, ice crystal, beast god blood, Qilin bone. Dozens of medicinal ingredients appeared in Lin Jun's hand and were all thrown into the pill furnace. With a flick of his finger, a bright green flame rose and was poured into the pill furnace to start refining pills. During the refining process, Lin Jun kept injecting cold air to expel the impurities in the pills. The combination of ice and fire in the furnace was unprecedented. This process isn't much. The most important process is the connection between the refining of the pill furnace and the mental cultivation. Combining the pill refining methods of the surface races with the pill refining methods of the endless races will create a brand new pill refining method. After learning this method, I'll be the first God Realm pill refining master. Lin Jun's pill refining had reached the peak of perfection. Now, he was going to forge a new path. This process was also broadcasted live in the dimensional universe. Countless people were watching. Everyone had seen pill refining before. However, it was their first time seeing someone refining pills as smoothly as Linjin. The most crucial moment had arrived. Linjin snorted. Various types of energy gushed out. The energy of earth, water, fire, and wind shone brightly. A bright green flame burned fiercely. Pill furnace. Retreat. With a thought, the pill furnace disappeared. Lin Jun immediately stretched out his hand. The flame on his palm burned fiercely and caught the ball of unknown substance in his palm. Hi! Lin Jun roared. The flame seemed to explode, forming an incomparably huge fireball. With a rumble, it enveloped Lin Jun. Lin Jun was like a burning candle at this moment. The flame was divided into more than 10 layers from dark to bright. This kind of gradual increase in temperature could guarantee the medicinal properties to the greatest extent. What? This guy actually knows the mental cultivation of the endless races. How is it possible that he knows it, and this mental cultivation is so skillful? Are all Saint Realm Pill refining masters so powerful? Crackle. A burst of sound like beans exploding sounded. The golden pills in Lin Jun's palm began to jump, from a regular shape to the most standard circular shape. Traces of energy turbulence were attracted by the aura of the pills, forming a dark cloud. If this dark cloud was injected into the pills, impurities would definitely appear in the golden pills. Lin Jun didn't panic at all. With a shake of his palm, a lotus flower bloomed. The pills hit the inner wall of the lotus flower, producing a series of banging sounds. The dark cloud circled the lotus flower a few times, but couldn't find a gap to enter. In the end, it could only disperse. The moment the dark cloud dispersed, Lin Jun's lips curled into a smile. There's no path in this world, but paths are created by people. From today onwards, I, Lin Jun, will be the leader of the pill refining master's world. I'm a divine realm pill refining master. Open. Following Lin Jun's soft shout, a strange scene appeared. The lotus flower in his palm slowly bloomed. As the petals opened, thousands of rays of light burst forth from his palm, like the rising sun. Blood Shadow and the others around the Godstone could smell the fragrance of the pills. They couldn't help but feel intoxicated. When the petals fully opened, dozens of pills were piled up in Lin Jun's palm. It was like a small pyramid. He gently opened his mouth, and a trace of cold air swept past, completely removing the impurities of the pills. The pills were formed. Seeing Lin Jun refine a bunch of unknown pills, Blood Shadow said coldly, Lin Jun, do you think you can pass the 10-meter line just because you refine new pills? You must know that you can't take pills twice here. Lin Jun chuckled. A frog at the bottom of a well, living in peace. F***CK. Brat, do you know who you're talking to? I'm talking to someone who doesn't understand human language. Lin Jun didn't hold back and mocked Blood Shadow. He immediately closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. If he wanted to pass the 10-meter circle, the peak of divine was definitely not enough. Lin Jun's long preparation and hard work finally exchanged for this divine realm pill. As long as he advanced to the divine realm, Lin Jun was confident that he could pass easily. After a few cycles, Lin Jun adjusted his state to the best, and he began to break through. No one expected this situation. When they saw Lin Jun refining pills, they didn't know what kind of pills they were. Only now did they know that it was a pill that could break through. This guy can actually take pills to enter the divine realm. God-level alchemist. So he wasn't joking. At this time, everyone knew that Lin Jun had really advanced to become a God-level alchemist. This news caused a huge uproar in the entire dimensional universe. In the entire primordial realm, there were still a few saint-level alchemists. However, as far as people knew, there wasn't a single God-level alchemist. God-level alchemists only existed in legends. It was said that this kind of alchemist was able to refine amazing pills and could create pill recipes at will. Every pill was a priceless treasure. For example, pills that could advance from divine sense to the divine realm, and pills that could advance from the divine realm to the divine stone realm were not sold on the market. If martial artists wanted to cultivate, they could only rely on countless years of accumulation. However, no one expected Lin Jun to really refine pills that could advance to the divine realm. This was the unique mark of a god-level alchemist. Compared to the situation in the Eye of the Storm, the birth of a god-level alchemist was more eye-catching. Including the small planet at the top of the Eye of the Storm, the four gods all had serious expressions. The two of them in Jinling were thinking about how to ensure Lin Jun's safety without violating the rules and protect this rare talent. Moses and the other two were thinking about how to get rid of Lin Jun. At this moment, Moses was incomparably glad of his decision. A god-level alchemist who was destined not to be used by the endless races should be eliminated. Lin Jun was unaware of the situation in the outside world. He also didn't have the energy to care about these things. Now was the most critical moment for him. After repeatedly adjusting his breathing, Lin Jun had recovered to his best state. It's about time to start the breakthrough. He took out 5 golden cores and placed them in his palm. He slowly took 2 deep breaths and swallowed the golden cores. The golden cores melted as soon as they entered his mouth. A powerful medicinal effect instantly spread out. Ka ka ka, ka ka. A series of cracking sounds came from his bones. Under the stimulation of the medicinal effect, the astral power in Lin Jun's body suddenly erupted. Astral power surged out radially from his 7 orifices and pores all over his body. Lin Jun instantly became dazzling. The barrier that imprisoned Lin Jun in the divine realm was finally opened at this moment. The world in his body seemed to have undergone a tectonic movement. It expanded outwards with a rumble. Mountains and rivers were born, and rivers flowed in reverse. Chapter 941. The biggest difference from the divine perception stage to the heavenly realm was the change in the inner world. Other than the expansion of the original world to provide more star power to the martial artist, the biggest difference was that the inner world was no longer an ordinary world, but the heavenly realm. The so-called heavenly realm referred to the ability to store soul power in the inner world. As long as the soul was strong enough and the heavenly realm was strong enough, the true spirit could be preserved. Even if the martial artist died, the powerful heavenly realm could still escape into the void. This was the martial artist's last resort. Of course, even if the martial artist condensed the heavenly realm, they could not do this because their physical strength was not strong enough and their souls were not strong enough. When it was time to die, they would still die. Generally speaking, the heavenly realm could be used when the martial artist became a god. At the very least, only the powerful martial artists of the Hall of the Exalted had hope. Therefore, in the heavenly realm, it was most practical to provide more star power. However, Lin Jun did not think so. Lin Jun had a super intelligent life, and that was crazy. When Lin Jun was preparing to break through, Crazy emphasized this matter. Master, your strength is far beyond the martial artists of the same level. The heavenly realm is an important stage for your strength. You must ensure a perfect breakthrough. This is very important. I also want to see if you can create a miracle. As Crazy had the god's inheritance, she understood these things very well and gave Lin Jun many ideas. However, in the end, Lin Jun still had to be strong enough. Lin Jun's plan was simple. He would break through to the heavenly realm here, then cross the 10-meter line and compete with Blood Shadow and the others for the last divine stone. After sitting cross-legged and taking the medicine, Lin Jun's breakthrough began. A golden star began to bloom in the center of Lin Jun's inner world. This golden light swept across the mountains, rivers, and every corner of the inner world. Wherever it passed, it was plated with a layer of faint golden light. The light of the heavenly realm. This is the light of the heavenly realm. When the golden light completely colored Lin Jun's inner world, the crustal movement of the inner world stopped. Back then, Lin Jun's inner world was an oval-shaped continent with a maximum diameter of about 5 million kilometers. And now, after a new round of expansion, the diameter of his inner world had increased to 10 million kilometers. on this continent. There were hundreds of billions of people living without any pressure. As his inner world expanded, Lin Zhun's Dantian Qi also expanded. The boundaries of his Dantian continued to expand, and new streams of stellar energy were born as his Dantian expanded, filling his Qi. Lin Zhun's stellar energy was like a column of heated mercury, rising in a straight line. Star power was the foundation of all martial arts techniques. Without star power, all martial arts techniques would be useless. Lin Zhun's previous star power was 1.5 billion, which was equivalent to that of an upper-middle demigod. The reason why Lin Zhun was able to battle with other demigods and even emperors was because of his outstanding battle techniques. His stellar energy was still weaker than the rest. Generally speaking, an emperor's lowest star power was 1.5 billion and above. But in reality, any emperor's star power would be around 2 billion, and the weakest emperor's star power was 1.7 billion or 1.8 billion. And for a Hall of the Exalted Martial Artist, the lowest star power standard was 2.5 billion. But in reality, Hall of the Exalted Martial Artists like Laughing Over All Life and Blood Shadow definitely had more than 2.5 billion, but Lin Zhun didn't know how much they had. Therefore, Lin Zhun's current strength could only fight against weaker emperors. As for the Hall of the Exalted, he wasn't even close. But this breakthrough in the divine realm brought a qualitative change to Lin Zhun. After swallowing a handful of pills, the divine realm was formed, and the barrier was broken. Lin Zhun's stellar energy soared as well. Lin Zhun's stellar energy was already close to overflowing, and after being replenished by the pills, his stellar energy skyrocketed. 1.6 billion, 1.8 billion, 2 billion, 2 billion, 2.5 billion, 2.8 billion, 3 billion. After reaching the divine realm, Lin Zhun's stellar energy doubled again. Feeling that the pill's effect was slightly weakened, Lin Zhun immediately took out the remaining pills and swallowed them again. After entering the divine realm, all the side effects of the pills were neutralized, and Lin Zhun could swallow without any worries for the time being. This handful of pills once again provided Lin Zhun with strength, causing his star power to once again reach a small peak. With a large base, the increase was also large. Lin Zhun had been cultivating for so many years, and his foundation was extremely solid. The new pills allowed him to reach the peak of the early stage of the divine realm and gave him an additional 500 million stellar energy. 3.5 billion. This was the total amount of stellar energy Lin Zhun had after his breakthrough. This was a kind of strength that came from his bones, so strong that Lin Zhun himself couldn't believe it. Compared to Lin Zhun's original body, his doppelganger finally fell behind this time, reaching the peak of the early stage of the divine realm, but the total amount of stellar energy was only 3 billion. However, this was also a rare strength, and 2.5 billion stellar energy was the minimum requirement for the Hall of Fame. The surging stellar energy in his body gradually calmed down, and when he scanned it with his mental energy, the vast stellar energy was like an endless sea, boundless and limitless. However, Lin Zhun didn't stop cultivating immediately, as he had another important thing to do, which was to entrust his soul to the divine realm. In the divine realm, one could escape into the void, and this was also an important step for martial artists to break free from the shackles of their physical bodies. Master, focus your mind at the center of the divine realm. This process is very difficult for the soul, and as long as you can integrate your soul energy, your soul will be entrusted. Lin Zhun nodded. He gathered all of his mental strength and focused it on the spot where the golden light first appeared. The concrete manifestation of the soul was the mental energy, and mental energy originated from the soul. The first step to entrusting one's soul to the void was to break through the void with mental energy. Mental energy was like a glass ball, and the void was like a steel plate. This was like an egg hitting a rock, and it wasn't something that ordinary people could withstand. Lin Zhun's mental power blasted towards a point in the void. Boom! The cross-legged Lin Zhun's face twitched violently, as if he was hit by a powerful mental energy attack, and his entire head was in incomparable pain. What a tough void energy. This mental energy attack is far from as simple as tearing the void apart with bare hands. If I attack it too many times, I might even die from the pain. However, Lin Jun wasn't discouraged at all. If the first time didn't work, then he would try again. All his mental energy blasted out with the power of the divine might heaven's will. Crack! Ripples began to appear in the void. The powerful rebound caused Lin Jun's mind to go blank, and the pain almost made him faint. However, Lin Jun noticed that the void finally had a little reaction. It's effective. If it's effective, then it means that my divine realm has reached the standard of entrusting to the void. That's good. He completely ignored the intense pain from his soul and blasted out his mental energy attack again and again. Some people could hit their head against the wall when they were in pain, but hitting it once or twice was fine. However, if they didn't die after hitting it multiple times, then even those who were eager to die would have to stop. If they didn't want to die, then they probably wouldn't be able to continue like this. Of course, Lin Jun wouldn't want to die, but he had to continue like this. The inhumane pain tortured him, but his resolute mind didn't waver at all. Bang, bang, bang. Dripping water penetrates stone, rope saws wood, elite guards fill the sea, foolish old man moves the mountain. Using mental energy to break through the void was a process that couldn't be done without great willpower. A full 10 hours. Lin Jun was in so much pain that he almost fainted, but he clenched his teeth and persevered. The intense pain this time wasn't inferior to his soul passing through a black hole. Only his heart that pursued the peak and his unyielding willpower supported him to complete this great undertaking. After 10 hours, a crack finally appeared in the void that was continuously bombarded. It's done. Lin Jun's mind shook. Under the impact of his excitement, all the pain was swept away. His mental energy entered and merged with the void. Hiss. Lin Jun realized that half of his mental energy ball was azure in color, and it was spreading at a speed visible to the naked eye. Originally, half of this mental energy ball was diamond-colored, and the other half was azure-colored. Now, the diamond energy was rapidly fading. The azure color spread all the way and dispersed all the diamond energy. Half an hour later, the last trace of diamond energy completely disappeared. Azure color was 100%. Lin Jun's excitement was indescribable. He didn't expect that merging his mental energy with the void would allow his mental energy to reach the peak of azure. It's done. It's done. Ha ha. I finally did it. Lin Jun, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, laughed loudly. Blood Shadow and the others couldn't help but look at him. He had completed a miracle that ordinary people couldn't imagine. With his strength at the peak of the early stage divine realm, he was able to entrust his soul energy to the void, giving himself a huge protective talisman. Moreover, his mental energy had also been greatly improved. It was the peak of azure. With Lin Jun's current mental energy, even a demigod wouldn't be able to block it, let alone a divine stone realm cultivator. No. If it wasn't a demigod, even a normal titled emperor, Lin Jun could kill him with the divine might of destiny. As long as the opponent's mental energy wasn't as strong as his, he could easily kill them. One had to know that those who could reach the peak of azure were basically at the hall of the exalted level. The breakthrough this time allowed Lin Jun to leap into the ranks of super experts. 5 billion star energy, peak azure mental energy, and divine will entrusted to the void. Lin Jun was now basically unafraid of anyone below the divine realm. Even if they couldn't defeat him, it would be extremely difficult for anyone to kill Lin Jun. He stretched out his hands and slowly pressed them down. He gently exhaled, and an arrow of chi shot out a few meters. He opened his eyes, and they shone like stars as he looked at Blood Shadow and the others. When Lin Jun looked at them, Blood Shadow and the others suddenly felt a chill down their spines. Especially Azura King. He didn't even dare to look at Lin Jun's eyes. Chapter 942. at the peak of the distant starry sky, inside the asteroid palace. The four gods watched the whole process of Lin Jun's breakthrough. When Lin Jun finished his breakthrough, the four gods were stunned. Jinling, I didn't see wrongly, right? Although we are not in the Thunder God's star, I feel that Lin Jun's star force is not ordinary. Yes, this kid's strength has reached an extremely high level. He is worthy of being a genius from our Fallen Star Lake. Ha! This time, your Fallen Star Lake has a successor. If there are no accidents, Lin Jun will be able to break through and become a god. Moreover, he will be a god-level alchemist. I'm so envious. Yeah, Lin Jun is simply the hope of the surface races. While the two of them were discussing, Moses's face was gloomy. However, there was a trace of pride in his gloominess. Genius. He is indeed a genius. A very, very genius. Unfortunately, the dead geniuses are worthless. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Lin Jun stood up from the void. The 10-meter line was 1 meter in front of his feet. A circle of light flickered here. After crossing it, the last 360 thunderbolts would fall from the sky. However, Lin Jun's strength had doubled. He was very confident that he could withstand it. The only thing worth worrying about was the thunderstorm in the black hole in his body. Hold on a little longer. After absorbing these 360 thunderbolts, I can absorb these thunderbolts with all my strength. Taking a deep breath, Lin Jun transformed into the black hole beast and stepped forward. The moment his toes crossed the 10-meter line, the dark clouds in the sky rolled, lightning flashed, and thunder roared. They turned into golden snakes and fell from the sky. Lin Jun roared. The black hole appeared and swallowed the first thunderbolt directly. Second, third, fourth, 34, 45, 10, 100, 100, 100, 200. Thunder rumbled as the lightning struck the black hole. The black hole could swallow the lightning, but it wasn't a naturally formed black hole. It was Lin Jun's black hole beast's black hole beast. The strength of the black hole depended on Lin Jun's strength. As long as Lin Jun had enough astral energy, the black hole would continue to devour. If he didn't have enough astral energy, the black hole would dissipate. As Blood Shadow and the other two watched Lin Jun's situation, they also felt nervous. Looking at the powerful black hole beast, the Azura king only had fear in his heart. Damn it, Lin Jun was actually so strong after breaking through. I'm already an emperor, and he's only at the god world level, but I can clearly sense that Lin Jun's power is definitely above mine and much stronger. I have a grudge with him, so I have to be careful in the future. The muscles on Heartless King's face, which was like a 10,000-year-old iceberg, twitched slightly. Even he didn't notice it. How is that possible? Lin Jun was only at the deity realm. He's actually more talented than me? No, when the situation here is over, I have to get rid of him no matter what. Lin Jun, let's see if I can survive under my sword. As a martial artist of the Hall of the Exalted, Blood Shadow was also shocked. When he came to the Eye of the Storm, there was only one enemy in his mind, and that was the surface race's Hall of the Exalted Expert, laughing over all life. However, he didn't expect Heartless King to be on par with him in terms of strength. In time, he might even surpass him. However, compared to Lin Jun, Heartless King was nothing. This kid's strength was not inferior to his at all. Even Blood Shadow didn't have the confidence to defeat Lin Jun, which was almost unimaginable. This Lin Jun is definitely the strongest genius of the surface race in hundreds of millions of years. In the future, he'll definitely be a huge threat to our endless race. Unfortunately, I can't deal with him now. Let's get the gods' treasure first. The few of them had their own thoughts, and they were all waiting for Lin Jun to pass through the lightning tribulation. Seeing how easy it was for Lin Jun to pass through the first 200 lightning tribulations, it shouldn't be a problem for him to pass through it successfully. Amidst the rumbling, Lin Jun had already swallowed more than 300 lightning tribulations. Although it was very strenuous, Lin Jun was very confident that he could definitely pass through it. He could definitely swallow all 360 lightning tribulations. 303, 304, 305. When Lin Jun swallowed the 355th lightning tribulations, the situation suddenly changed. Lin Jun only felt that within his dantian, a bolt of lightning seemed to appear from his blood. It seemed that the lightning was hidden in Lin Jun's blood. When Lin Jun was stimulated enough by the lightning, it finally affected the hidden bloodline. Not good. Lin Jun was shocked and suddenly felt that something was wrong. In an instant, he already knew where the lightning came from. The power of the lightning should have come from the lightning Qilin's blood. This was the beast god's blood that he had exchanged for. Back then, Lin Jun had asked for the Qilin's blood, and the other party had given him the Thunder Qilin. Lin Jun was quite happy at that time, but now he suddenly realized that he had been plotted against. The lightning hidden in the blood appearing is not a big deal. The key point is that the lightning attracted the thunderstorm inside Lin Jun's black hole. Lightning fell from the outside, and lightning rose from the inside. Under the guidance of the lightning Qilin's blood, the inside and outside cooperated. Inside the black hole, a bolt of lightning rose into the sky and connected with the powerful lightning outside, forming a powerful lightning ball that penetrated Lin Jun's body. Damn it! As a god, it is impossible for him not to know the effect of the lightning Qilin's blood when crossing the 10-meter line. But I have no experience in this area. I have definitely been plotted against. Who is it? I have not offended any god. Who is it that is attacking me? But Lin Jun did not have time to think about these things. He must suppress the lightning with his powerful star power and prevent any accidents from happening. But he could no longer suppress it. The last few bolts of the 360 lightning actually affected the yin and yang in the sky, causing countless bolts of lightning to rumble and fall. One after another, they smashed into Lin Jun's black hole. Lin Jun could withstand the 360 lightning bolts, but the lightning seemed to be endless. As it rumbled down, Lin Jun almost wanted to vomit blood. Not good. This is the Thunder God Star. The thunderstorm in my body and the lightning Qilin's blood have triggered powerful, endless heavenly thunder. I'm afraid these lightning bolts will continue to strike. The black hole was constantly trembling. The restless lightning ball in his body was supplemented by the endless lightning outside and had crazily skyrocketed. The crackling lightning bombarded Lin Jun's dantian and began to wreak havoc inside his body. Under the pincer attack, Lin Jun was having a hard time holding on. In the distance, the Azura king's eyes widened. This brat actually triggered endless lightning. Could it be that the thunder god of our endless race does not welcome him and is using his last strength to kill him? The blood shadow shook his head slightly. No, it seems that something has happened that even he himself does not know about. But this time, he will not be able to escape this calamity. This endless lightning will not stop until it kills him. The Heartless King looked at the crazy lightning storm on the verge of collapse. There was a slight regret on his face, but more of it was a kind of relief. Lin Jun, this person is too talented. Even the heavens will be jealous of you, so you must fall. Lin Jun had already withstood more than 800 bolts of heavenly thunder. Before this, even Lin Jun himself did not know that he could have such powerful potential. At this critical moment of life and death, he could actually do this, but this was useless. So what if he withstood more than 1,000 bolts? There seemed to be no end to the lightning, especially the thunderstorm ball in his body. After absorbing endless lightning, it had formed an unbelievably huge ball of energy. This energy was so violent and powerful that it was about to explode in Lin Jun's body. Ka, ka, ka. Rumble. Where Lin Jun was, the lightning formed a huge ball of lightning. Countless bolts of lightning rumbled and fell around him. This power was enough to destroy the world, but the lightning was still falling. This proved that Lin Jun was not dead yet. When more than 1,000 bolts of lightning fell, the eyes of the Blood Shadow and the others almost fell out. At this time, Lin Jun finally could not take it anymore. No, if this continues, I will definitely die. Instead of being killed by the lightning here, I might as well fight to the death. If I can shatter the inner world left behind by the Thunder God, I might have a chance to survive. Lin Jun steeled his heart and suddenly rushed up against the lightning. His target was the huge godstone left behind by the thunder god. 5 billion star power rose in his body. Lin Jun went straight for the huge godstone. If you don't want me to survive, I will shatter this thing you left behind. Shatter. True. Star fall. A dazzling star appeared in the void. Under the push of the white light, it slammed into the huge god's stone. Lightning and gods came crashing down on Lin Jun like a storm. However, Lin Jun didn't care about his life anymore. The star that was about 1/5 of its size in the black hole exploded at this moment. Seeing Lin Jun's power, the Blood Shadow and the others could not help but curse. F***CK. Lunatic, everyone run. This inner world is going to be destroyed. The three of them flew away like crazy. After Lin Jun's star fall and the protective light film of the Godstone were in a stalemate for a few seconds, a huge explosion occurred. The massive explosive energy had almost completely destroyed the Thunder God star, and in the direction that Lin Jun was rushing in, a long tunnel had been blasted open. On the other side of the passage, the 9 heavens astral wind whistled. This time, it actually penetrated the wind and thunder stars. At the center of the explosion, a lotus flower appeared in the air. Then, there was a dazzling white light. Lin Jun's entire person disappeared, leaving not even a trace behind. Chapter 943. No one expected Lin Jun to be able to unleash such a powerful attack. Shattering the Thunder God Star and piercing through the Wind God Star. Was this something a normal martial artist could do? After the Wind God Star was broken through, the 9 heavens astral wind and violent lightning gathered at one point. Powerful energies clashed, and, at this point, the wind and lightning met. Blinding energy flashed, causing the void to tremble. Lin Jun seemed to have disappeared at this point, leaving no trace behind. Along with Lin Jun, 2 giant godstones also disappeared. Needless to say, the Thunder God's Godstone disappeared along with Lin Jun's star fall, while the Wind God's Godstone also appeared at the moment the tunnel was broken. The Wind God's internal world shattered, and the Godstone also disappeared at this point. After the Wind God's internal world shattered, laughing over all life, and the others also escaped at the last moment. Above the remnants of the Wind God star, 7 people stood in the air, looking at each other. Laughing over all life, Blood Shadow, Emotionless King, Shura King, and the others all looked at each other, unable to accept this reality. After so many years of waiting, they didn't expect this to be the result. Finally, it was Blood Shadow who spoke first. I think everyone should be sure of one thing, and that is whether Lin Jun is dead or not. That's right, if Lin Jun isn't dead, then the 2 Godstones should be with him. If he's dead, then the 2 Godstones will probably never be found. You can check Tao's video, there should be a record there. They all started to check at the same time. At the very beginning, they saw some black scales appear, which should be Lin Jun's body. After being struck by the lightning, Lin Jun's body definitely couldn't take it and should have exploded. The 2 emperors thought Lin Jun was dead, but at the end of the video, they found something strange. At the point where everything disappeared, there was a lotus blooming. At this moment, Heartless King said, I have investigated Lin Jun's past. This person once obtained a divine body on God's punishment star. It was the lotus divine body. At the last moment, when the lotus bloomed, it should have been a method to protect him. I think he might still be alive. The Azura King clenched his teeth and said, since he's still alive, then let's search for him. We can't let him take everything for himself. Several people returned to the place where Lin Jun had disappeared in Thunder God's star. They carefully searched for him, but in the end, they found nothing. There was no trace of Lin Jun's existence here. He had completely disappeared. The few of them didn't say anything. Instead, they quietly opened the dimensional universe. They wanted to ask the gods if Lin Jun was still alive. On the small planet, the 4 gods were also having a fierce quarrel. Moses, you did all of this, didn't you? How could Lin Jun trigger a thunderstorm in his body at the last moment? If you hadn't given him the lightning, chill, and blood, none of this would have happened. Moses coldly snorted. Jean Ling, this has nothing to do with me. I was only responsible for selling Lin Jun a bit of Qilin blood. Who cares about lightning? If he didn't agree, he could have rejected the transaction at that time. After saying that, Moses's eyes revealed a trace of anger. Also, don't take advantage of us. You and I both know in our hearts whether Lin Jun is dead or not. At the last moment, Lin Jun successfully activated the divine world. His soul entered the divine world and escaped into the void. His body was shattered, but his consciousness is still there. It's only a matter of time before he revives. What are you angry about? Jean Ling coldly snorted. It's precisely because I know this that I didn't bicker with you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let you off. Humph, do you think I'm afraid of you? The other two gods persuaded one after another. Since Lin Jun wasn't completely dead, then they shouldn't make a big deal out of it. After a while, several people calmed down and stopped talking. However, some people asked them about Lin Jun's life. Gods were once martial artists, and those who lived for a long time had the opportunity to meet gods. For example, Blood Shadow knew Moses and was asking about it. Lin Jun is still alive. The two godstones should have followed him into his divine world. However, you have to be careful. He is now very powerful. You have to be fully prepared. When he revives, don't give him another chance. On the side of the ground, another god, Guan Shan, gave the same answer to Heartless King. It was through Guan Shan's efforts that experts above the emperor level had the opportunity to enter the eye of the storm. It was Heartless King who had suggested this to Guan Shan. Guan Shan knew that Heartless King was hostile towards Lin Jun, but he wasn't a god from the Fallen Star Lake Holy Land. He was from the soul-locking altar. The Fallen Star Lake was too powerful, and it didn't suit the soul-locking altar's interests. Therefore, Guan Shan was happy to see certain things happen. However, these words couldn't be said to Jean Ling. Guan Shan secretly told this news to Jean Ling and entered a state of cultivation again. Time was meaningless to the gods. They could spend tens of thousands of years cultivating at a time, so the time in the eye of the storm was nothing. Blood Shadow was the first to speak. I have received news that Lin Jun is still alive. However, he is currently living in a soul state. When he revives, he will still appear here. Shura King said hatefully, in that case, we will wait here. When he comes out, we will swarm him and kill him. Blood Shadow shook his head. That won't be necessary. Didn't you notice? The Thunder God's star has been shattered, and the Wind God's star has been pierced. The wind and thunder here have gradually dissipated. I believe there will be no more wind and thunder in the eye of the storm. They were stunned for a moment before they noticed the change in the weather. Sure enough, the lightning power in the eye of the storm had disappeared, and the wind speed that was as high as sublight speed had turned into a gentle breeze. It didn't affect anything at all. Without the wind and thunder power, doesn't that mean we can come and go freely in the eye of the storm? That's right. The restriction has disappeared. This place is no longer mysterious. I believe other people will come here soon. Then what do we do now? Blood Shadow sneered. It's simple. Without the wind and thunder interference, we can all set up surveillance cameras here. When Lin Jun revives, we can directly tear through space and come here. We will definitely be able to make it in time. We don't have to wait here like idiots. Shura King smiled. That's right. Why didn't I think of that? Without the wind and thunder power, we can go wherever we want. Blood Shadow looked at laughing over all life. Laughing over all life. This matter concerns everyone's interests, so I hope you won't be biased just because Lin Jun is a surface race. The two godstones are still here, but they are in Lin Jun's god realm. When the time comes to kill Lin Jun, everyone will fight for them based on their own abilities. What do you think? Laughing over all life looked around. There were a total of 7 people here, but only he and Heartless King were from the surface races. Heartless King was not easy to deal with. Now that his strength had greatly increased, he might not listen to laughing over all life. Moreover, Lin Jun also had a grudge against laughing over all life. Laughing over all life nodded. All right, then we will go our separate ways. Before other experts arrive, we will try to collect the godstones in the crisscross continent and planet graveyard. All right, let's do that. The few of them set up surveillance cameras. Once Lin Jun appeared, they would definitely know immediately. After doing this, the few of them left and went their separate ways. There were many other experts' ruins in the Valley of Wind and Thunder, and they had to collect them all. The incident in the Valley of Wind and Thunder was spread throughout the dimensional universe. A god-tier alchemist was envied by the heavens and died in the star of Thunder God. The hope of the surface races has fallen. How'd he die? Listen to my analysis. Lin Jun, the tragic story of an expert. Let's hear how the professionals explain the whereabouts of the godstones of wind and thunder. I think there are three main reasons why Lin Jun is still alive. If you don't agree, come and argue. Posts were published in the dimensional universe. During this period of time, everyone's attention was focused on Lin Jun. A god-tier alchemist had given Lin Jun a gorgeous halo, and many people were jealous of him. However, no one expected that the heavens would be jealous of geniuses. Lin Jun actually died in the star of Thunder God. Lin Jun's story, the cause of Lin Jun's death, or whether he was dead or not, all of these caused intense discussions in the dimensional universe. Some were filled with righteous indignation. Some stomped their feet and beat their chests. Some were reasonable. Some were citing data. Some were saying that he was dead. And some were saying that he was not dead. For a time, no one could convince anyone. Such discussions began to spread quickly. Not only were the surface races discussing it, but the endless races were also discussing it. Wen Tao's video had been studied countless times, and every detail was not missed. Many ordinary warriors, which was the majority, believed that Lin Jun was dead because there was evidence in the video that his body had exploded at the last moment. The remains of his body had been blasted into dregs by the endless lightning and turned into dust. As for the blooming of the lotus, it should be the final radiance of his life. It was just his last gamble, and it would definitely be useless. However, some experts did not think so. They believed that Lin Jun might have escaped to the divine realm. However, those who thought so would not debate with the public. Firstly, they disdained it, and secondly, they might have other intentions. If Lin Jun was not, then what about the two huge godstones? If they obtained them, wouldn't they be rich? Some people even saw an opportunity from this and even took action. Such discussions continued for an entire month before gradually subsiding. The voices that believed that Lin Jun was dead still occupied the mainstream because Lin Jun never appeared again. Time was still flowing and the days were still the same. The battle in the eye of the storm was not over yet. However, the attention here was getting less and less. Lin Jun seemed to be gradually forgotten by people.